It was from the Cataclysm. I can illuminate the technological tree. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 826 Birds and Fish. It will take a long time to explore the Dead Star region. The preparations for the intergalactic expedition are coming to an end, but the research work of the Academy of Sciences has not stopped. On the contrary, the enthusiasm for scientific research has reached its peak at this moment. The extended symptom of the phobia of insufficient firepower, the phobia of insufficient technology. The journey of 2.54 million light years is very long. So long that various accidents may occur in this long and lonely journey. Human civilization can only rely on its own strength to move forward. In order to increase the fault tolerance of the fleet as much as possible, all the academicians of the Academy of Sciences are doing their best to promote the development of related technologies. Human Union Academy of Sciences, Space-Time Research Center. Today's Space-Time Research Center is particularly lively. A large number of Level I academicians gathered together, including the oldest academicians such as LV Yongchang and Fang Zhu. Strictly speaking, except for LV Yongchang, the rest of the Level I academicians have been in the Space-Time Research Center for a long time. Including Fang Zhu. As the second in command of the Academy of Sciences, Fang Zhu's role is naturally to make up for what is missing. The main focus is a companion to this day. The technology inside the 10th Empire Fortress and the technology tree with the fog on the top gradually fading away have proved one thing: the space-time theory involving other dimensions is the key technology to break through the 7th level civilization. Therefore, under LV Yongchang's orders and a large amount of resources, the Space-Time Research Center has gradually become one of the largest research institutions of the Academy of Sciences. For the first time, human civilization has truly encountered a bottleneck in the development of civilization. Just like birds and fish. As three-dimensional creatures, humans are fish in the water. When they have no ability to jump out of the water and fly into the sky, they can never imagine the vastness of the sky. Three-dimensional creatures, with imagination alone, can never imagine the breadth of four-dimensional space. Through a large number of observations, this huge gap may be smoothed out. But the problem is that human civilization has too few ways to observe high-dimensional space. The only thing that has something to do with dimensions is the four-dimensional clean bottle technology and the four-dimensional optical brain. But relying solely on a clean bottle technology, it is impossible to fully observe the four-dimensional space. Just like a frog living at the bottom of a well, even if it can look up at the sky through the well mouth, it still cannot have a comprehensive understanding of the real sky. It is for this reason that the development of space-time theory has gradually stagnated. The defects of the theory make clean bottle an uncontrollable technology, except for the ready-made arrangements in the four-dimensional optical brain. Slightly changing the spatial position of the gravitational source can still generate a clean bottle structure in four-dimensional space, and three-dimensional objects can pass through this structure normally, but the specific landing point cannot be determined. It can be an antimatter furnace between decks, deep in the center of the earth, inside the human body. In short, as long as it exists in a three-dimensional space, there is no place where it cannot appear. Therefore, in the past hundreds of years, the Academy of Sciences has been trying to generate a large number of clean bottle space-time structures through gravitational sources. It's still a stupid way, exhaustive method. Since it is impossible to master the technology of controlling clean bottles through theory, it is necessary to conduct inductive analysis through a large number of experiments. It is also a good way to reverse the process from the answer. It may consume a lot of time and resources. You get what you sow. You plant watermelon seeds, but you harvest sesame seeds. This is a common thing in scientific research. Although the Space-Time Research Center has not yet obtained a method to control the clean bottle, it has unexpectedly perfected the space-time theory, based on three-dimensional space. The resulting space application technology is located in the high-level area of the 6th level technology tree. Space shield technology. This technology is a reason why a large number of academicians gathered at the Space-Time Research Center inside the Space-Time Research Center. LV Yongchang was standing in the experimental console area, curiously looking at the space shield generation device located in the experimental area in the holographic projection point for hundreds of years. His main research direction has been in high-dimensional space-time theory. This practical application, based on three-dimensional space-time theory, is mainly responsible for new generation academicians such as Lin Yongnian. Human fleets have never had a good defense against space-based strikes. Even starships equipped with dense hydrogen armor are like tofu dregs in front of attacks such as space rift and space annihilation. The gravitational shield has some interception and weakening effects, but the effect is not great. Actual combat tests show that even the Star-class sub-flagship, Titan mothership, can only withstand 5 space rift attacks when the shield is running at full power. After 5 times, the Titan mothership will basically lose its combat capability. Relying on the theory of space and time, the Academy of Sciences has developed the sharpest spear, but there is no shield to match it. This has always been a thorn in Liu Yongchang's heart. Until recently, with the efforts of Lin Yongnian, the three-dimensional space-time theory has made another breakthrough. Space is always the best means to resist space. The principle of space shield is not complicated. Through the grand unified field, tearing the space around the ship is like a space rift. However, the technical requirements of space shield are much higher than those of space rift. This is also normal. One only needs to tear the flat space roughly, the other needs to control the crack from expanding further while tearing the space, and even more so, to form a circle of stable barrier that wraps the starship. Can the two be compared? Attention, all units, the first trial run of space shield is about to begin. Lin Yongnian's voice sounded in the loudspeaker, interrupting Liu Yongchang's thoughts. He once again cast his eyes on the huge device in the holographic projection. Although he could basically simulate the specific experimental process with his quantum brain, he still had a faint look of expectation in his eyes. The successful breakthrough of space shield technology has brought the perfection of the 6th level civilization technology tree to a higher level. It also means that the distance between human civilization and the 7th level civilization is one step closer. As the orderly broadcast sounded in the loudspeaker, the camera in the holographic projection began to gradually zoom out. In the experimental site, in addition to the space shield generation device, there are also several space rift generation devices. Energy path detection is normal. Energy transmission begins. The grand unified field control unit is normal. Power is increasing. 5%, 10%. The eyes of the academicians also began to gather on LV Yongchang, who was standing in front of the experimental console. Undoubtedly, the order to start such a major experiment must have been issued by him. LV Yongchang took a deep breath and issued an order in a deep voice. The power has reached the preset target. Try to generate space shield. Chapter 827, Space Shield. The moment the voice fell, a deep dark spherical barrier suddenly appeared in front of everyone. It was the ultimate darkness, and neither the light from the outside nor the light from the inside could penetrate this barrier. LV Yongchang narrowed his eyes slightly and stared at the various rapidly jumping data on the left side of the screen. The instantaneous power of the device was very high, but the maintenance time was less than 0.1 second. Simply put, the space shield generation experiment had actually ended long ago, and what was currently in front of the academicians was just the debris of the shield that was slowly being eroded by the surrounding space. 1 second, 2 seconds. As time passed, the smooth and dark spherical barrier gradually showed some changes on its surface. The self-healing effect of space had begun to show its effect. At first, these holes were still very small, like a little dust on a coal ball, and were not conspicuous, but as time went on, these dust-like holes gradually expanded and merged into larger holes. The speed of the hole expansion was getting faster and faster, and soon, it eroded most of the dark spherical barrier. The internal space shield generation device was once again exposed to the eyes of the academicians when the entire spherical barrier completely dissipated. The first step of the experiment was considered to have come to a successful conclusion. The successful Generation of the space shield does not mean the end of the entire experiment. After a few minutes of data processing, the space shield generation device and the holographic projection began to operate again. At the same time, the space crack generation device in the distance also began to operate synchronously. This time, what needs to be tested is the defense capability of the space shield against space attacks. At the moment when the deep spherical barrier appeared, a thin line of the same deep darkness came from a distance. Considering various observation problems, the emission speed of the space crack was deliberately lowered a lot, even less than 0.1 c. But even so, this speed cannot be captured by the naked eye. Under the playback lens of the ultra high speed camera, the deep dark thin line suddenly passed and hit the black spherical barrier. No ripples were stirred. As if being swallowed, the thin space crack disappeared directly into the barrier, perfectly resisting the first space crack. The experiment was not declared over. Yongchang continued to issue the second order in an orderly manner. Switch the firing mode to the continuous firing mode. Increase the operating power of the space crack generating device gradually. The violent test of the space shield's defensive performance officially began. The moment the voice fell, the majestic energy flowed along the energy path to the space crack generating device and the space shield generating device respectively. Thin black lines appeared in the experimental area one after another, turning the originally peaceful time and space upside down, as Yongchang ordered, as the operating power of the space crack generating device increased. The depth of the generated space crack also began to gradually increase. The most intuitive phenomenon is that the width of these black lines has increased visibly! 10% rated power, 20% rated power, 50% rated power. The increasingly thick black lines continuously bombarded the deep spherical barrier like a stream flowing into the sea, without even a single wave point. But Yongchang's originally relaxed brows began to gradually wrinkle. Unlike the picture observed by the naked eye, it can be clearly seen from the rapidly flashing data on the side that as the intensity of the space cracks continued to increase, the power of the space shield generator also climbed at an exaggerated speed. As time went on, the output power on both sides reached the highest design value. Even Yongchang, who was quite confident about the experimental results, couldn't help sweating when he saw the thick black lines whizzing through the experimental area. 1, 2, 3. In just a moment, 3 space cracks with the highest power fiercely slashed on the deep barrier. Hold on. Looking at the space shield generator that was still operating normally, Yongchang's eyes flashed with a hint of joy. 5, 10. The intensity of the test rose to a new level again. Several spare space crack generation devices also joined the battlefield. A full 10 space cracks were struck on this smooth barrier in succession. Bang, ding, 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 accompanied by the piercing alarm sound. The flames of the explosion flashed in the holographic projection. Under the extreme test, the shield generation device successfully overloaded. But it still perfectly completed the predetermined goal to resist the attack of more than 10 space cracks. Of course, although the shield generation device has been overloaded and scrapped, the generated space shield did not dissipate immediately. The self-repair of space takes a certain amount of time. In this process, the space shield actually still has a certain degree of protection. After several tests, the first trial run of the space shield was finally successfully completed. The test data were also clearly presented to all academicians. The experiment was very successful, and the actual defense capability of the space shield even exceeded the theoretical value. The researchers did not calculate the wreckage after the space shield was broken. It has to be said that the more difficult the technology, the higher the returns it will bring. The emergence of space shield almost eliminated the original shield system. Theoretically, it can not only resist space attacks, but also resist attacks from conventional weapons. The test results also show this. Whether it is energy weapons such as laser weapons or kinetic weapons such as electromagnetic guns, it has a good defensive effect. But its own characteristics are destined to prevent it from completely replacing traditional shields. First, the self-repair effect of space. Like space rifts, space shields will slowly disappear after they are generated. Of course, Continuously applying a grand unified field to it can maintain its existence for a long time. But this is when we have to mention its second characteristic point, the two-way interception characteristic of the space shield point. It is actually very easy to understand point as a disguised space rift. You cannot require it to have the ability to identify friend or foe. It can not only block external attacks, but also attacks from starships. It is like a hard turtle shell, which cannot enter or exit point. Captain, I guess you don't want to be a living target that can only be beaten on the battlefield, right? Therefore, the space shield is designed to be an instantaneous trigger shield point when the detection device detects that the starship is about to be hit by a space attack or a large-scale conventional weapon. A space shield will instantly form in the hit area of the ship point. After completing any defense, the space shield will gradually disappear under the self-repair effect of the surrounding space point. During this period, it can even play a lot of residual heat to protect the warship from a lot of subsequent damage. Point, it can be said that he has devoted himself to his work until his death. Chapter 828, Dimension Laboratory. During this period, the Space-Time Research Center has encountered many obstacles in the theory of high-dimensional space-time. Point, even Liu Yongchang stumbled on the thick wall of dimension. Point, the success of the Space Shield Trial Operation experiment made the somewhat silent atmosphere in the Space-Time Research Center become more lively, and a faint smile appeared on the face of one of the academicians. Chief Liu Yongchang retracted his gaze from looking at various data and turned to the direction where the sound came from. Point, Lin Yangnian was seen waving his right hand towards him with excitement. Point, then he squeezed through the academicians around him and ran toward Liu Yongchang with difficulty. Give way, buddy, give way. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. Upon hearing this, the academicians surrounding Liu Yongchang hurriedly made way for Lin Yangnian to pass through a not so wide passage. Point, looking at academician Lin Yangnian, whose face was slightly red and excited, Liu Yongchang could not help but feel a little confused. Point, the successful development of space shields is certainly something to be happy about, but is it necessary to be so exaggerated? Laboratory. There's news from the lab, Lin Yangnian's excited voice continued. Point, Liu Yongchang was stunned for an extremely brief moment, and then realized what the laboratory Lin Yangnian was referring to. You mean clean bottle? Lin Yangnian nodded vigorously. Yes. Song Yunzhen, the head of the Dimension Laboratory, just sent me a message. They have successfully summarized and compiled a set of 4-dimensional algorithms that can perform basic prediction and control of the landing area of the clean bottle. Hearing this, Liu Yongchang couldn't help but lose consciousness slightly. Point, the wait is finally here. The exhaustive method, which took hundreds of years and countless resources, finally created a way for human civilization to peer into the 4th dimension. Walk. Liu Yongchang immediately turned around and walked towards the laboratory door. Yangnian, come with me to the Dimension Laboratory, Academy of Humanities and Sciences, Dimension Laboratory. Point. As soon as he entered the laboratory, Liu Yongchang saw a magical scene. Point, in the huge holographic projection, scenes from the experimental area are being simultaneously projected. Point. In order to more intuitively observe the spatial transition phenomenon caused by the 4-dimensional clean bottle with the naked eye, the entire experimental area is filled with a large number of fine suspended dust and parallel beams under the influence of Zhu and Shen. The traces of light passing through were reflected in everyone's eyes extremely clearly. Point, the light path is twisted like a meandering stream. This is due to the interference from powerful gravitational sources. A stream of light slowly flows forward until it reaches an empty area. Point, over there, the stream of light seemed to have encountered a deep cave, all disappearing into the seemingly peaceful space. Point, this scene is somewhat similar to the original optical brain research process, but there are obvious differences between the two. Point, first, the clean bottle structure in front of us only has an inlet and no outlet. Point, of course, according to Liu Yongchang's guess, its exit was controlled very far away, and it was not within the experimental area. Point, second, the structure of the clean bottle this time is larger. Its entrance is even more than 10 meters wide, which is very different from the fine structures inside the optical brain. Point, furthermore, from the bits of suspended dust and light paths that continue to escape from the entrance, it can be seen that the fineness of workmanship of the clean bottle in front of you is far inferior to the clean bottle structure inside the optical brain point. Similarly, its technological content is far inferior to the internal structure of the four-dimensional optical brain. This is an undoubted reality point, but from the perspective of human civilization, the huge clean bottle structure in front of him attracted Yongchang's attention more. The reason is simple. It is a clean bottle with a new structure, built by human civilization relying on its own strength. Different from the mature structure in the four-dimensional light brain that cannot be changed, and comes from outsiders, the clean bottle in front of you, although slightly rough, has almost infinite plasticity. Where did they go? Yongchang stopped and stared blankly at the huge holographic projection in front of him, murmuring in a low voice. They naturally refer to the light and suspended dust that disappear out of thin air. Lin Yongnian on the side did not speak. Like Yongchang, he was also stunned on the spot, looking at this miracle of human civilization with excitement. They went to another experimental area. A slightly unfamiliar and plain voice came, and at the same time, there was a rush of footsteps. The two experimental areas are 500 meters apart, with 14 walls in between. Yongchang subconsciously turned his head and looked in the direction of the sound. He came back to his senses, smiled and greeted the visitor. Academician Song Yunzhen, Chief Lu, welcome to your arrival, Song. Yunzhen, who was wearing a white research uniform, raised his hand to call up the holographic operation interface, and said hello to Yongchang with an indifferent expression. As his fingers moved slightly, the huge holographic projection screen in front quickly switched to another perspective. It was an experimental area with the same structure. Unlike the former, it does not have any light source installed inside. But it's not dark inside. Quite the opposite. A bright stream of light slowly flows out of the sky. Under the influence of several powerful gravitational sources, the stream of light continues to meander forward until it escapes the scope of gravity. This bunch of light coming from another experimental area illuminates this experimental area like daylight. Song Yunzhen took a step forward and walked to Yongchang's side. He also stared at the shocking scene in the holographic projection and explained in a calm voice, this is a clean bottle made according to the calculation model number 193,741. At present, after more than 500 tests, we have successfully predicted and controlled the three-dimensional projection coordinates of the clean bottle outlet. Hearing this, Yongchang was moved. Calculation model number 193,741. More than 500 tests. How many people's hard work is hidden under the calm tone? But, Song Yunzhen's voice revealed a little helplessness, perhaps because of the architecture problem, or perhaps because there are still some unknown problems in the algorithm model. The current distance between the outlet and the entrance of the clean bottle is at most 500 meters. After exceeding this limit value, the three-dimensional projection coordinates of the exit will appear in the same situation as before. Well done. Yongchang did not hesitate to praise. More than 300 years of hard work. Finally there is a result. Congratulations, Song. Yunzhen fell silent after hearing this under the gaze of Yongchang and Lin Yongnian. He took a deep breath, as if suppressing the emotions that were about to burst out of his heart. A few seconds later, his expression remained calm, but his tone of voice became much more serious. This is what we should do. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 829, A Small Accident. Following Song Yunzhen's rhythm, Yongchang and Lin Yongnian had a preliminary understanding of this computational model that they had obtained after much hardship. This clean bottle uses a total of 156 gravitational nodes. Among them, a total of 130 gravitational nodes are used to maintain the entrance and the bottle body structure. The remaining 26 gravitational Nodes play the role of maintaining and guiding the exit of the clean bottle point, looking at the three-dimensional spatial coordinates of the 156 gravitational nodes in the holographic projection. LV Yongchang couldn't help but sigh in his heart. The gap between human civilization and the 10th empire is still too big. The more gravitational nodes of the clean bottle, the better. The more gravitational nodes there are, the more complex the mutual interference, and the more unstable the clean bottle is in the 10th empire. The average number of gravitational nodes that maintain a single clean bottle structure in the fortress membrane is controlled at around 12. Of course, for today's human civilization, whether the clean bottle is stable or not is actually a secondary issue. LV Yongchang carefully examined every detail of the computational model. Suddenly, a brilliant idea emerged in the quantum brain. Yongnian, he thought for a moment, and said to Lin Yongnian, who was still learning this calculation model, if we use this technology on the inside of the space shield, then our fleet can attack against the space shield. Lin Yongnian's eyes lit up, and his tone quickly completed what Lu Yongchang wanted to say. The space shield has a two-way interception feature. It will not only block the enemy's attack, but also block the attack from its own side. This greatly limits the actual combat strength of the space shield. The clean bottle structure seems to be born for it. The narrow cracks in the three-dimensional space cannot block the bright road of the four-dimensional space. How is it? LV Yongchang turned his head to look at Song Yunzhen. Do you think it's feasible? A jump range of 500 meters is enough to cross the space shield. Lin Yongnian excitedly added, not only that, we can even add corresponding technology to weapons that can jump short distances. LV Yongchang imagined the scene and couldn't help but take a breath. Shields, armor, these defenses are like a joke in front of it. The picture is so beautiful. Song Yunzhen also cast a weird look at Lin Yongnian. He thought for a moment. Theoretically, this should be possible, but the structural stability of the clean bottle is too poor now, and it may not be enough to support the passage of weapons and equipment. We have tried to invest high precision detection equipment in it to collect data in four-dimensional space, but, while speaking, he operated on the holographic projection in front of him. The next moment, a detection ball with a diameter of 1 meter appeared in the holographic projection. Driven by the robotic arm, the detection ball slowly approached the entrance area of the clean bottle. A few seconds later, the detection ball was swallowed into the clean bottle. Almost at the same time, a piercing alarm sounded, and the clean bottle structure that was originally running stably instantly dissipated. The winding light path also dissipated in all directions at this moment, and formed an extremely scattered picture under the action of hundreds of gravitational sources. Well, Song Yunzhen shrugged, looking unsurprised, let alone more massive weapons and equipment. As of now, these clean bottles can only pass through some beams and suspended dust. If nothing unexpected happens, the inside of this detector has become a mess, and there is almost no possibility of repair. He raised his hand and searched in the holographic projection. Wow, I'm lucky this time. The detection ball didn't touch any precision instruments. As Song Yunzhen spoke, an empty room appeared in the huge holographic projection. In the wall of the room, a detection ball with most of it exposed was embedded. This experiment. Lin Yongnian looked at the scene on the screen and swallowed hard. Is the risk factor so high? Can you please tell me what the most dangerous experimental accident was like? Song Yunzhen looked at Lin Yongnian expressionlessly and signaled with his eyes. Lin Yongnian was stunned at first, and after reacting, he turned his head and looked behind him. I saw an inconspicuous bulge embedded in the thick wall behind him. Next to the bulge, there were fine and dense cracks judging from the color of the surface. If I remember correctly, it should be an accident that happened 10 years ago. At that time, this detection ball appeared directly in this wall, because the detector is almost completely immersed in the wall. If you want to save it, you must smash the entire wall. Song Yunzhen's tone was as calm as ever. Considering that this detector has been completely damaged, there is basically no need to save it, and it has no significant impact on the strength of the wall, so we let it stay here. Small problem, Lin Yongchang felt a drop of sweat slowly sliding down his forehead. The place where they are now is the central control center of the Dimension Laboratory. The experimental accident has rushed to the central control center, and this is still called a small problem. The researchers in this Dimension Laboratory, why do they feel a little abnormal? Not only Lin Yongnian, but also Lu Yongchang silently moved his feet and stayed as far away from it as possible. After learning about the history carried by this wall, don't worry so much. The distance between the central control center and the experimental area is dozens of kilometers. Under normal circumstances, experimental accidents will not affect our side. It was just a little accident. Seeing this, Song Yunzhen subconsciously comforted in. This has almost become his habit. He has said this to many newcomers in the past 10 years. But every newcomer's reaction was basically the same, including Lu Yongchang and Lin Yongnian. They would all glance at the bump on the wall, give him a complicated smile, and continue to move away from the wall. A detection starship with a strong construction style of human civilization speeds through the empty starfield. The space-time fluctuations caused by the curvature engine are like a stone dropped in a calm pond, causing ripples in this ocean of time and space that has been silent for thousands of years. For a detection starship with a sailing speed of 1000 c, the detection mission in a 100 light-year area is just an easy task. The detection starship has traveled back and forth in this starfield more than 10 times. All detection results show that this starfield not only has no backhand left by the sweeper civilization and pastoralists, there is not even any trace of civilization activities. This is a dead starfield that has completely lost its vitality, not to mention the birth of civilization. Even outside interstellar civilizations will deliberately avoid this starfield. All detection data are transmitted back to the Kepler 452 star system in real time. According to the plan, after completing the inspection of the last few areas, the detector will choose to return. If everything goes normally, in about 200 years, that is, in the year 4600 of the Earth's calendar, the fleet of human civilization will officially set sail and arrive in this dead starfield in 4605. Chapter 830, The Disappearing Exploration Ship. What a pity. In the Dimensional Laboratory, LV Yongchang looked at the clean bottle being reconstructed in the holographic projection, his eyes full of regret. It would be better if its stability was higher. Song Yunzhen responded in his usual calm tone. This is our next goal. At least we have to safely send the high precision detector into this clean bottle. This will also be of great help to the research work of high-dimensional space-time theory. LV Yongchang nodded, retracted his gaze, and looked at the complex calculation model again. He frowned slightly and stretched out his hand to point at the projection in front of him. I think this should be related to the calculation model. Although 156 gravitational nodes are a bit more, it will not have such a big impact. Song Yunzhen nodded in agreement. You are right. After many experiments and discussions, our current conclusion is the same, but we haven't found the problem yet. LV Yongchang didn't speak. The laboratory suddenly became silent, and the atmosphere became a little solemn. Suddenly, LV Yongchang stretched out his hand to circle several areas in the projection and broke the solemn atmosphere. I feel there may be problems in these places. Send all the experimental data to me. I will go back and study it carefully. We must solve this stability problem as soon as possible. Hearing this, Song Yunzhen's expressionless face for many years actually showed a bit of surprise. How many? He asked back in surprise. Not many, only 3 or 4 places. LV Yongchang scratched his head, his attention still on the projection. I'm not sure, but it looks a bit strange. There should be a problem. Song Yunzhen, you are worthy of it. At this time, in the dead starfield 1800 light years away from the Kepler 452 star system. With the ripples on the ocean of time and space, the detection starship is conducting the final exploration of this dead starfield. Touchus information is transmitted to the distant Kepler 452 star system. Suddenly. The Fluctuation of the curvature engine disappeared abruptly in this starfield. The ripples on the ocean of time and space gradually calmed down as they drifted away. This dead starfield has once again regained its former tranquility. The Tachyon signal is transmitted very quickly, and there is not much delay, even if it is 1800 light years. Warning. Emergency. The next moment after the detection starship disappeared, a piercing alarm sounded in the dimensional laboratory. At the same time, the azure holographic projection in front of LV Yongchang instantly turned blood red. Abnormal situation. The detection ship signal is lost. The Tachyon signal of the detection ship number 129C cannot be detected. Repeat. The Tachyon signal of the detection ship number 129C cannot be detected. Signal loss area. Risk assessment is in progress, and the probability of encountering an unknown attack. 95%. The first level combat readiness alarm of the Human Union has been activated. The signal research program is being executed, dispatching detection ships and detectors in the surrounding starfields before LV Yongchang could react. Zero had completed a series of risk assessments and emergency response operations according to the preset program. The moment the first level combat alert sounded, the entire Kepler 452b sounded a piercing alarm. Whether it was the Academy of Sciences or the Human Union Council, a blood-red holographic projection appeared in front of everyone. Fuck. After reacting, Lu Yongchang subconsciously burst out a swear word. Things happened too suddenly, and he was not prepared at all. How could the signal of the detection starship suddenly disappear? He asked in a hurried tone. Is there any footage of the attack? Zero. Retrieve all the data sent back by the detection ship at the end. On the side, Lin Yangdian and Song Yunzhen have not yet recovered. Since human civilization became a level 6 civilization, it has never encountered such an emergency. The new generation naturally lacks the relevant practical experience. Although they all have knowledge reserves in this area, this kind of emergency is obviously not something that can be handled by relying solely on book theories that looked at each other with a faint panic in their eyes, but looking at LV Yongchang's solemn expression, the panic in their hearts inexplicably dissipated for the most part. It seemed that, as long as LV Yongchang was there, human civilization would never have any accidents. The blood-red holographic projection quickly enlarged. Various detailed data appeared in front of the three academicians. LV Yongchang frowned, and quickly flipped through the various data. There are no traces of the existence of advanced civilizations, no signs of being attacked. There were no signs before the signal disappeared. Suddenly, lost contact. Zero. Temporarily cancel the first level combat alert. After thinking for a long time, LV Yongchang gave an order softly. This doesn't look like an attack by a higher civilization, although the 6th level civilization is not powerful. It is not so powerful that it cannot find the attacking object. Based on these data, LV Yongchang and the other two roughly restored the crime scene in their minds. The probe ship was traveling in the empty and silent starfield, conducting a carpet-style exploration of the surrounding environment. Suddenly, the probe ship disappeared in the universe extremely abruptly, and the Tachyon signal sent back also stopped abruptly. Lu Yongchang's expression slightly changed. This scene, why does it look familiar? He turned his head and looked at the bright light path that was slowly flowing in the huge holographic projection. Clean bottle. The three said in unison. PS. Thanks to for the great certification. Thanks to Shishiart for the gift king. Continue to update 5 more chapters. Please give me a gift. Chapter 831 Oolong, Science Academy, Space-Time Research Center. After LV Yongchang and Lin Yangdian left, Fang Zhu led the other academicians to analyze and summarize the large amount of data generated by the Space Shield experiment. This is the most basic operation after each experiment. Just as Fang Zhu and the other academicians were immersed in data processing, the azure holographic projection in front of them instantly turned blood red. A piercing alarm sounded, breaking the original tranquility of the Space-Time Research Center. Fang Zhu's face changed slightly. The first thought that came to his mind was an experimental accident. Although the experimental risk factor of the Space-Time Research Center is not as high as that of the Dimension Laboratory, it is definitely not safe. Once a major experimental accident occurs, large-scale damage to the experimental equipment is considered a good luck, what's going on, experimental area. Before he could ask the question in his mind, Fang Zhu saw a line of dazzling text on the blood-red holographic projection. Human Union Level 1 Warfare Alert. Fang Zhu's eyes widened suddenly. Even he felt that his brain was blank for a moment. Since human civilization entered the 6th level civilization, the 1st level war preparedness alarm has never been sounded in the full 640 years. Therefore, when seeing this somewhat unfamiliar alarm information, not only Fang Zhu, but all the academicians present were stunned. Unlike the new generation, who had just entered the Academy of Sciences, the older generation of academicians quickly recovered from the shock. The next moment, their expressions became heavier, and their eyes showed deep worry. With the current strength of human civilization, there seems to be only one possibility: to sound the 1st level war preparedness alarm. In addition to encountering the local 6th level civilization in the Milky Way, there are only the sweepers and the pastoral faction who are hiding somewhere unknown. Hope it is the former these academicians who have experienced the era of escape prayed from the bottom of their hearts. Thinking of this, they followed Fang Zhu's footsteps and ran quickly out of the laboratory. Fang, academician Fang, a new generation academician followed Fang Zhu in a panic and asked him incoherently, what is this? The new generation born in the Kepler star system has never experienced such a scene. Although they have received relevant education, it is obviously not enough to rely on written education alone in such an emergency. Fang Zhu stopped and glanced around. The face of each new generation academician was full of panic. Don't you know what the 1st level combat alert means? Fang Zhu rarely frowned and shouted at these new generations who had not yet experienced the crisis of life and death of civilization. Everyone, go to Earth now. If you miss the opportunity to fight, you will be dealt with according to the Human Coalition law. After shouting, he no longer paid attention to this group of new generation academicians who grew up in peacetime and ran directly to the gate. Outside the door, anti-gravity vehicles have landed one after another. When the academicians have completed boarding, these vehicles will soar into the sky under Zero's control and head for the star class Earth, running in synchronous orbit. The Earth, far away in synchronous orbit, has also opened the port gate, and the guiding force field, based on the principle of the grand unified field, has also begun to operate. Even the power of the antimatter reactor inside the Earth has begun to gradually increase. No, not just the Earth, the entire Kepler 452 star system, and even all human warships in the entire pan-human Federation territory have simultaneously received warning information from 0. Under the orders of a commander, a large number of warships woke up from silence, adjusting their own status while waiting for the next order from the Academy of Sciences. From the time the 1st level combat readiness alarm was sounded to now, under Zero's efficient dispatch, in just 10 minutes, the entire human alliance was ready to fight. But the harsh alarm slowly dissipated, and the blood-red holographic projection gradually turned back to azure blue. Alarm lifted. Fang Zhu stared blankly at the words and the azure holographic projection. Are you kidding? He turned stiffly and looked at the academicians around him, who were also confused. Looking at the confused eyes cast by the academicians, Fang Zhu suddenly felt his blood pressure rise a lot. He swore that he had never encountered such a weird thing since the establishment of the Human Union. Wait a minute. Fang Zhu squeezed out a sentence from between his teeth. Maybe Zero made a mistake in judgment. Let me ask first. Before he finished speaking, LV Yongchang appeared in the azure holographic projection. He explained the alarm information just now with a serious and slightly apologetic look. Just as Fang Zhu said. This was a misjudgment of 0. But LV Yongchang did not clearly state the reason for the misjudgment, but just covered it up with a general statement. As LV Yongchang's deputy, Fang Zhu noticed the problem at the first time. Sure enough, after the announcement to the entire human union in the holographic projection, LV Yongchang's tone of voice quickly quickened. He explained in detail to the academicians the reasons for the 0 misjudgment. To sum it up, it's just a few words. Big discovery, come quickly. So, within a few minutes, The anti-gravity vehicle parked outside the Space-Time Research Center was filled with excited academicians unlike before. After learning that the exploration ship might encounter a super large-scale natural clean bottle structure, the new generation of academicians ran faster and faster from a certain perspective. These anti-gravity vehicles that came because of the first level combat alert were not in vain. They carried a large number of academicians and flew directly to the Central Research Institute at the South Pole of Kepler 452b. This is not just a scene happening at the Space-Time Research Center. Anti-gravity vehicles rose in the entire southern hemisphere of Kepler 452b. Most of these anti-gravity vehicles are academicians who are on vacation or have completed their current scientific research tasks. What? Researchers don't have such a long vacation point, although the scene this time is not as spectacular as the spectacular scene when Yongchang summoned all the first level academicians to conquer optical computer technology. It is also a major event of the Human Union Academy of Sciences. It has to be said. No matter what the level of civilization is, this gene fragment of joining in the fun is deeply imprinted in human DNA. When these anti-gravity vehicles took off one after another and arrived at the Central Institute of the Academy of Sciences, a large number of scientific research and experimental ships and engineering ships anchored in the Kepler 452 star system also slowly sailed out of the Kepler 452 star system carrying a large amount of supplies. Chapter 832 Hopes Dashed. Under L.V. Yongchang's command, the unmanned exploration fleet that was performing daily patrol missions in the nearby starfield rushed to this dead starfield without stopping. The fleet consists of 3 exploration ships. The reason for allocating them to the dead starfield is simple: to conduct a more detailed exploration of the area where the number 129C exploration ship disappeared. The research on clean bottles has lasted for more than 300 years. It is no exaggeration to say that the number of clean bottles manufactured by the Dimension Laboratory and the Space-Time Research Institute has exceeded 100,000 at least. Although most of them are defective products that exist for a few seconds or less, but so many clean bottle structures have a common and significant feature: clean bottles. There must be an exit if there is an entrance. So far, humans have never found a clean bottle without an exit. It's just that its exit may fall in some strange places. Unlike electromagnetic wave communication and quantum communication, tachyon communication has the excellent characteristics of high stability, high speed and weak interference. In addition, the Academy of Sciences uses the highest precision tachyon signal receiving device. L.V. Yongchang was confident that as long as the 129C probe appeared within a range of 10,000 light years, the Academy of Sciences would be able to quickly receive the signal from the 129C probe. But there was a problem. The 129C probe had disappeared for more than 48 hours. The Academy of Sciences had not received the tachyon signal from the 129C probe. So far this meant that the specific situation might be far more complicated than L.V. Yongchang and others had initially estimated. L.V. Yongchang frowned, sat in his seat, and stared carefully at the holographic projection in front of him. In the past few days, he and the academicians had repeatedly read through the various data sent back by the 129C probe, trying to find some clues from these extremely normal data. It was easy to see from the distance between L.V. Yongchang's eyebrows that the progress of this work was not smooth. Several simple conjectures were also put forward. The first possibility was that this clean bottle structure formed naturally or formed by the aftermath of the war was far beyond L.V. Yongchang's imagination. It can directly transmit the probe ship number 129C to a distance of 10,000 light years away. It exceeds the longest distance of tachyon communication of human civilization at present, so it is normal that no signal can be received. But this, is it really possible? From the perspective of probability, it is indeed possible, but the possibility is very small, so small that it is almost unnecessary to consider. Imagine that the short distance space jump inside the mother star fortress of the 7th level peak civilization, the 10th empire, only spans a distance of tens of thousands of kilometers. How can a naturally formed clean bottle structure span a distance of tens of thousands of light years? Recalling the accident scene seen in the Dimension Laboratory a few days ago, the second conjecture emerged. This clean bottle structure is not stable. After the probe ship entered, its structure collapsed by itself, causing the probe ship to suffer an irreparable major blow. From the information currently available, this seems to be the most likely conjecture to come true. This is also the picture that Yongchang is most reluctant to see. The natural clean bottle structure can almost be said to be the only shortcut for human civilization to spy on high-dimensional space today. After all, the strength of the artificial clean bottle structure is far from meeting the standard. Not only that, through the exploration of natural clean bottles, the Academy of Sciences can also obtain more valuable information, such as a more stable clean bottle structure, the conditions for the existence of large clean bottles. But if the second conjecture comes true, then all of the above will be illusions. Therefore, Yongchang can only pin his hopes on the third conjecture. The previous judgment was wrong. That thing was not a clean bottle structure at all, but another space-time anomaly phenomenon unknown to humans. Ding. A crisp reminder interrupted Yongchang's thoughts, looking at the line of text that popped up in the holographic projection. Yongchang's face was slightly relieved. The exploration fleet composed of 3 exploration ships successfully arrived at the disappearance area of the exploration ship number 129C. The exploration mission was then launched. In order to prevent falling into the possible space-time anomaly structure, the 3 exploration ships were arranged in a triangular shape and slowly moved forward, with a distance of more than 1 million kilometers between the exploration ships at the same time. The 3 exploration ships pointed their high-precision probes at each other, ensuring that they could capture the scene of any accident of any friendly ship. Time passed by bit by bit. The 3 probe ships conducted carpet searches over and over again in the area where the probe ship number 129C disappeared. But let alone the entrance to the natural clean bottle structure. Except for sparse interstellar dust, the probe ship did not even find a hair. The detection accuracy reached the atomic level, and even the wreckage of number 129C was not found. This directly ruled out the possibility that the probe ship number 129C was attacked by an unknown attack point. At the same time, it seemed to rule out the 2 conjectures proposed by the Academy of Sciences at this moment. And here, there is no clean bottle structure at all, nor is there an unknown abnormal space-time structure. The answer seems to be locked on the second conjecture that Yongchang least wants to see. The natural clean bottle structure is very fragile, and under the stimulation of the probe ship number 129C, it directly disappeared in the universe. Seeing the reality developing towards the worst expectation, Yongchang smacked his lips a little irritably and issued another order: conduct a comprehensive search of the entire dead starfield, with the goal of finding the wreckage of number 129C. According to the accident scene in the original Dimension Laboratory, if the second guess really happened, the wreckage of number 129C will definitely be found around. Under Yongchang's order, the 3 exploration ships began to slowly increase the power of the curvature engine. For such a large-scale search, it is definitely not possible to maintain the original sailing speed. Although this will inevitably lead to a decrease in detection accuracy, the search for the wreckage of number 129C exploration ship does not require too high detection accuracy. The tremendous energy generated by the antimatter reactor flows into the curvature engine along the energy path. The surface of the calm space-time ocean also began to rise with increasingly violent wave swish. The 3 exploration ships disappeared into the visible universe at the same time, and the search for the wreckage of number 129C officially began. Yongchang also breathed a sigh of relief and leaned back on the chair. The shortcut was broken, and he fell into a short sage state. Tired. Let's destroy it. Not only Yongchang, but also the researchers in the Dimension Laboratory fell into the same state. Especially when they thought that they would have to rely on the exhaustive method to find a more stable clean bottle structure. The atmosphere in the research center became more depressed. Chapter 833 Twisted Clean Bottle. Warning. Warning. The sharp alarm that suddenly sounded broke the silent atmosphere of the research center. The blood-red holographic projection reflected the confused eyes of the academicians present. The signal of the probe ship number 1531C has been lost. Warning. Warning. An abnormal space-time structure has been detected. Hiss. LV. Yongchang took a breath of cold air and gave the order directly without any hesitation. 0. Stop the curvature engine of 1532C and 1533C immediately, reducing the curvature engine power. The probe ship has successfully exited the superluminal curvature state. The moment the electronic synthesized sound sounded, the figures of two probe ships appeared again in the empty and dark dead starfield. Only the second half of the pin-shaped fleet remained. The leading probe ship had completely disappeared in this starfield. The waves that kept surging on the ocean of time and space slowly spread far away. Without the curvature engine, the source of wave making, the amplitude of the waves became smaller and smaller. Finally, the ocean of time and space returned to calm. Just like this dead starfield, there was no life. The two exploration ships seemed to be stopped in time, quietly hovering in the vast universe, waiting for the next order from the Academy of Sciences. Unlike the calm situation in the dead starfield, the Human Union Center Research Institute at this time has fallen into chaos. It appeared Lu Yongchang was refreshed, swept away the original listless appearance, and stood up directly from the chair. 0. Release all the observation data of the three probe ships after they entered the superluminal curvature state. He issued a series of orders with an urgent look. Fangzhou, you take people to analyze and study the observation data of the probe ships. Lin Yongnian, you and I will analyze the abnormal space-time structure together. As soon as the voice fell, the holographic projection quickly unfolded, and the corresponding data of the abnormal space-time structure detected by the probe ship was presented in front of LV Yongchang. LV Yongchang frowned slightly and snorted softly. Hiss. It's a bit like the entrance structure of a clean bottle, but, Song Yunzhen's voice came from the side, completing the words that LV Yongchang had not finished saying. It doesn't look like a clean bottle with a normal structure. Yes. LV Yongchang nodded and continued. The degree of structural deformation is very serious. It seems to be twisted by something. Not only that, its exit structure has also disappeared. Can this still be called a clean bottle? LV Yongchang questioned. There is no distinction between inside and outside of a clean bottle. Therefore, if there is an entrance, there must be an exit. The scene in front of him completely overturned Lu Yongchang's cognition. Where did its exit go? Where did the two missing warships go? Before he could figure out this problem, the calm electronic synthesized sound rang again in the Central Research Institute. The abnormal space-time structure has disappeared, and the alarm has been lifted. This broadcast seemed to inject a shot of forced sedatives into the slightly chaotic research institute. Inside the research institute, there was silence. Everyone stopped the work they had just started, looking at the huge holographic projection in front of them with a look of astonishment. What the hell? Lin Yongnian suddenly felt bad. How is this possible? Such a huge space-time structure suddenly disappeared out of thin air. Yes. Huge. If it is a clean bottle, then this should be the largest clean bottle structure ever seen by human civilization. According to the data of the probe ship, the width of its entrance is a full 100 kilometers. It is nothing on the scale of the universe. But in front of humans, this is undoubtedly a giant space-time abnormal structure. Lin Yongnian could not help but fall into deep self-doubt. The space-time theory of human civilization cannot explain such a phenomenon at all. Could it be that mankind has embarked on a wrong path? The atmosphere in the research center became more and more solemn. LV Yongchang, who had been silent for a long time, carefully observed the data of the probe ship before and after the abnormal space-time structure appeared and disappeared. Suddenly, he seemed to realize something. He widened his eyes slightly, and a look of disbelief appeared in the depths of his eyes. How is it possible? Even he couldn't help but question it in his heart when he thought of this possibility. After a moment of silence, he gave an order in a deep voice. 0. Slowly increase the power of the curvature engine and create a space-time fluctuation point in the area where the probe ship number 1531C disappeared. Chief Lu Song Yunzhen and Lin Yangnian cast confused eyes at LV Yongchang together. During the appearance and disappearance of the abnormal space-time structure, only one data has changed significantly. LV Yongchang stretched out his hand and pointed at the holographic image in front of him, explaining in simple and clear words the output power of the curvature engine. To put it simply, it is the degree of fluctuation of this space-time. Although the specific reason is unclear, it is basically certain that this abnormal space-time structure will only appear when space-time fluctuates greatly. While speaking to exploration ships 1,800 light-years away have already started the experiment point under Zero's precise control. The output power of the curvature engine began to increase slowly. The space-time ocean, which had originally returned to calm, once again showed a little bit of fluctuation. This fluctuation became stronger and stronger as time went by, and the waves on the space-time ocean gradually became more intense. Ding. The abnormal space-time structure was successfully detected. The moment the electronic synthesized sound rang out, LV Yongchang showed a faint smile at the corner of his mouth. Found it. Although the principle behind it is still unclear, it is always good news to find the entrance 1,800 light-years away. The power of the curvature engine of the probe ship continued to increase. The abnormal space-time structure also gradually became clear. If the artificial clean bottle entrance in the laboratory is a standard sphere in 3-dimensional space, then the wild clean bottle entrance in front of us is a constantly twisting sphere. The increase in the power of the curvature engine makes this entrance clearer and clearer, and also makes its degree of distortion continue to increase. Finally, when the power of the curvature engine reaches a certain critical value, the abnormal space-time structure dissipates again. Standing in front of the holographic projection, LV Yongchang's eyes flashed. He carefully observed the rapidly flashing space-time detection data. With his quantum brain running at full speed, hazy thoughts slowly emerged. Chapter 834 Ing-shaped scientific research project. After trying several times, LV Yongchang gradually understood the switch of this abnormal space-time structure. Simply put, when the output power of the curvature engine of the probe ship is between 43.8% and 49.7%, it can appear in this star field. But the test results show that the stability of this space-time structure is the highest only when the curvature engine output power is 46.2%. Too low will cause it to become blurred, and too high will cause it to become distorted. I have to say that humans are really lucky. After discovering this law, LV Yongchang couldn't help but sigh. Needless to say, the 129C probe ship that disappeared for the first time when passing through this area, the output power of the curvature engine was just in this range. As for the 1531C probe ship that disappeared for the second time, let alone the probe ship that is accelerating at full speed, whether it is 1 second earlier or 1 second later, will make human civilization completely miss this magical space-time structure. The exploration operation of this abnormal space-time structure officially began. One of the probe ships is responsible for stabilizing its existence with the curvature engine, and the other probe ship is responsible for comprehensive detection of the space-time around it. LV Yongchang temporarily gave up the idea of letting a probe ship enter this twisted clean bottle. After all, judging from the situation of the previous 2 probe ships, this would only be a one-way trip. Before the various mysteries behind this twisted clean bottle are figured out, LV Yongchang is not going to continue this meaningless waste. Earth calendar year 4402. The scientific research and engineering ships departing from the Kepler 452 star system successfully arrived in this dead star region. With the joint efforts of the engineering ships and robots, a ring-shaped scientific research project surrounding the abnormal structure of space-time was built. Among them, there are grand unified field generation devices with higher control accuracy, and there are also higher precision detection devices. This brings more valuable data and information. Human Union Academy of Sciences Central Research Institute. 2 full years of research. Under the leadership of LV Yongchang, The Dimension Laboratory and the Center for Space-Time Theory Research cooperated with each other, and with the support of a large amount of data, they finally constructed a partial 4-dimensional model of this distorted clean bottle point. Through this half of the 4-dimensional model, the Academy of Sciences at least knew the reason why the 2 exploration ships lost contact. The problem lies in this distorted structure. For example, put a foam ball on the calm water under the sunlight. The projection of this foam ball on the bottom of the water should be a circular shadow point, but if there are ripples on the water surface, the shadow of the foam ball will become a constantly distorted quasi-circular shadow point. The degree of distortion of this quasi-circular shadow will continue to increase as the degree of fluctuation of the water surface increases. The same is true for the clean bottle point. The stability of the 4-dimensional structure of this huge clean bottle structure in front of us should be quite good point, but the entrance and exit of the clean bottle are actually its projection in 3-dimensional space point. Space-time is the ocean point under the action of the curvature engine. The space-time ocean is constantly fluctuating, which naturally causes its projection in 3-dimensional space to be distorted point. The 2 probes that passed through the distorted clean bottle, if nothing unexpected happened, have been completely destroyed by the power of time and space point. The research has achieved results, which should be a happy thing point, but the atmosphere in the Central Research Institute seems particularly solemn point. The reason is simple point. With the in-depth study of the distorted clean bottle, more and more puzzles have emerged point. Why does it only appear when time and space fluctuate? Where is its exit? Where does this clean bottle lead to? Questions keep emerging in the minds of LV Yongchang and other academicians. In order to solve the above problems, LV Yongchang proposed a plan point. Still send probes and probes to try to enter its entrance for deeper exploration point, but it is different from the previous 2 probes that lost contact point. This time, the Academy of Sciences first needs to find a way to make its 3-dimensional projection no longer distorted, based on the existing half 4-dimensional model point. Only in this way can the probe pass through the entrance of this clean bottle smoothly and safely. In order to achieve this goal, the Academy of Sciences conducted various experiments on the area where this clean bottle is located. Point in the Ring Research Project, gravitational fluctuations caused by the ground unified field are continuously generated. Point under LV Yongchang's command, it keeps trying to find a space-time fluctuation pattern with less impact point, but it's no use. Point it wasn't until LV Yongchang restudied the appearance and disappearance of the clean bottle entrance that he discovered a problem that everyone had been ignoring. Point it wasn't the space-time fluctuation that caused it to appear to be precise, it was the bulge of space-time that caused the appearance of this clean bottle structure. Again, space-time is like the ocean point. The depression of the sea surface, that is, the depression of space-time, forms gravity point, but space-time is not only concave point. The working principle of the curvature engine is to make part of the space-time bulge in part of the space-time concave point. The space-time waves formed by this are also the same point. In the past 2 years, the space-time waves created by the curvature engine have been too dense, which has also given the Academy of Sciences an illusion that this clean bottle structure will only appear when space-time fluctuates. It was not until the arrival of the scientific research fleet and the engineering fleet, the completion of the circular scientific research project, and the experiment entered a more refined level, that LV Yongchang discovered the mystery point. After finding the problem, things became simple. Point under the action of the ground unified field controlled device in the circular scientific research project, the space-time in the target area began to bulge slowly. Point it no longer fluctuated up and down like before, but was like a hill slowly rising on the ocean of space-time. Abnormal space-time structure detected. The moment Zero's electronic synthesized sound sounded, a magical scene also appeared in the holographic projection. In the central area of the circular scientific research project, a spherical structure with an extremely smooth surface appeared at some point. The sphere was dark and deep. When the starlight from afar passed through it, it was all swallowed up. This is a standard 3-dimensional projection of the entrance of the giant clean bottle. It is no longer distorted. This means that humans can try to send a probe ship into it, but LV Yongchang was a little confused. Theoretically, it should not be completely dark. The clean bottle is a two-way structure. Once the channel is built, the image of the exit can be seen even at the entrance point. Although he was confused, he had to shoot the arrow on the string point. The experiment has come to this point. He can't terminate the experiment because of this, right? So, Yongchang put his concerns behind his mind and looked down again at the test data sent back by the Circular Scientific Research Center. After confirming that there was no problem, he took a deep breath and issued an order. Release the detection ship. Target the entrance of the giant clean bottle. Chapter 835. Small Universe. The order was given. A small fleet of dozens of probes and spherical probes slowly sailed towards the deep dark sphere under Zero's control point. In order to prevent the curvature engine from affecting the stability of the clean bottle structure, these probes were simply modified. They were driven by the most primitive antimatter engine. Driven by the antimatter engine, the leading probe successfully arrived near the sphere. The tense atmosphere in the Central Research Institute also reached its peak. Keep moving forward. The front half of the probe disappeared in front of the academicians. Keep moving forward. The first probe was completely submerged in the sphere. Yongchang subconsciously held his breath. Success or failure depends on this. The touch ion signal is normal. Switching the observation screen of the number 1 probe. The moment the electronic synthesized sound sounded, a warm cheer suddenly rang out in the institute. Success. Yongchang had a faint smile on his face and breathed a long sigh of relief. Just as the academicians were celebrating, a brand new huge holographic projection appeared in front of the institute. The cheers gradually faded and the academicians turned their attention to the observation picture from the number 1 probe. Darkness. This was everyone's first impression. It was an extremely dark area. No starlight. Yongchang found the blind spot and frowned immediately. A strong doubt rose in his heart. In this huge universe, is there still a place where you can't see starlight? What kind of hell does this clean bottle lead to? Facing the unknown, Yongchang was curious and felt a little fear. The entrance and exit of the clean bottle are actually artificially defined, and it has no so-called directionality. This also explains why the entrance of the clean bottle is pitch black. The area it leads to can't see any light source at all. In the picture, the high power light source equipped with the probe is the only light source in this area. But for this dark and terrifying space, this light source is obviously too weak. It shot straight ahead, but was soon swallowed up by endless darkness. A sense of exile and loneliness arose spontaneously. For some reason, an idea suddenly emerged in Yongchang's mind, and he muttered to himself, it's like a universe that has reached its end. The end of the universe is not necessarily a new Big Bang. Heat death is likely to be the ultimate fate of the universe. According to the second law of thermodynamics, as an isolated system, the entropy of the universe will increase with the flow of time, from order to disorder. When the entropy of the universe reaches its maximum value, all other effective energy in the universe has been converted into heat energy. There is no natural luminous body in the universe of complete heat death, and even black holes have completely evaporated, leaving only a large amount of dark matter scattered in space. If someone lives in such a universe, there is no doubt that he will be a person who is truly exiled from the world. This situation did not last long. A few seconds later, a strong beam of light shot from behind and hit the first probe ship. It was the high power searchlight from the second probe ship. The diffusely reflected beam slightly illuminated the space around the probe ship. Not only that, the third ship, the fourth ship, all the probe ships that had not yet entered the entrance of the clean bottle turned on their high power searchlights under Zero's control. These beams shot straight at the entrance of the clean bottle. The perspective in the holographic projection automatically turned to the back of the probe ship. It was a spherical structure similar to the entrance of the clean bottle. Obviously, this was the exit of the clean bottle. Compared with the entrance, the spherical structure in front of us looked extremely bright. It was like a rising star. A large amount of light entering from the entrance scattered from this spherical structure, completely illuminating the surrounding space. The extremely strong light scattered around at the speed of light. This dark space finally became a little brighter, but at infinity, it was still as dark as ever. Looking at the scene in the holographic projection, Yongchang's confusion in his mind increased instead of decreasing. What the hell is this place? He suppressed his uneasiness and issued a detection order. The number 1 probe took the lead and sailed forward. The gamma rays ejected by the antimatter engine scattered in all directions, bringing some life to this peaceful space. Time passed by. Suddenly, accompanied by a slight alarm, a familiar technological creation appeared in the originally unchanging holographic image. The appearance of the technological creation has been greatly distorted, and the internal device has completely stopped working. A large number of debris of different sizes are suspended around it. Through the distorted number on its hull, LV Yongchang still recognized it. Probe number 129C. The previous inference was correct. The distorted clean bottle entrance destroyed the probe that strayed into it. The probe continued to move forward. The second wreckage soon appeared in front of the academicians. It was probe number 1531C. The probe did not stop and continued to move forward according to LV Yongchang's order ahead. It was still dark. As the probe continued to move forward, the piercing alarm sounded again. Collision warning. Looking at the text on the projection, LV Yongchang was stunned. Collision. Where did the obstacle come from? The warning message automatically unfolded. It was a warning message from the number 2 probe following behind the number 1 probe. The holographic screen quickly switched. The relative position of each probe was presented in front of LV Yongchang. Fuck. When seeing the information on the screen, LV Yongchang subconsciously burst out a swear word. How is this possible? The antimatter engine continued to work at standard power, but the distance between the number 1 probe and the number 2 probe was constantly shortening. No, that's not right. The number 1 probe did not move forward at all. It was like it had encountered an invisible wall. No matter how it increased the engine power, it could not move forward half a step. As for the number 2 probe, it soon arrived at the position of the number 1 probe. Similarly, it also encountered the invisible wall. Then, detection ships number 3 and number 4, spherical detectors number 1 and number 2. These detectors and detection ships heading in different directions all sent the same report. This is a closed space. Looking at the endless darkness ahead, LV Yongchang suddenly remembered a technology that the Fortress Mastermind 10 had mentioned. This is microcosm. PS. Thank you for the gift, King of the 10th Art. The Great God certification of LV Yinayang of Yonghengsan Village. The Great God certification of Song Yunzan. The Great God certification of Haoiuzadong. Continue the 5 updates. Please give me gifts. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 836. A small universe with a diameter of 1 light year. The captured stars can be placed in the civilization microcosm and used by the star energy extraction device. These are the original words of the Fortress Master 10. From this sentence, it can be seen that the 7th level civilization, 10th Empire, has at least one microcosm of its own. At first, when he learned the news, LV Yongchang found it difficult to imagine such a scene. What kind of technology should a civilization master to create a microcosm? Yes. Create. LV Yongchang, who was still in the 5th level civilization and had only a preliminary understanding of the theory of space and time, once believed that this so-called microcosm was created directly out of thin air using technologies such as the Big Bang. This caused a great shock to LV Yongchang at the time. Of course, it was limited to that time as human civilization's understanding of space and time gradually deepened. LV Yongchang had a vague guess about the microcosm due to the lack of observational and experimental data. It can only remain at the level of guessing until today. He looked at the dim space without any starlight in the holographic projection, and inspiration continued to gush out of his quantum brain. Through the various data sent back by the detection ships and detectors, he constantly confirmed his original conjectures about the microcosm. Wrong conjectures were eliminated, and correct conclusions were attained at some point. A deep blue holographic projection had unfolded in front of him. The projection was full of formulas and models, based on the theory of space and time. At this moment, apart from the holographic projection full of formulas in front of him, Yongchang only had a rapidly flashing detection data. The command work was temporarily taken over by Fang Zhu. Under Fang Zhu's command, Zero began to control a large number of detection ships and detectors to conduct a comprehensive detection of this suspected microcosm space. First, humans need to figure out its boundaries. In other words, how big is it? Time passed slowly. The holographic projections in front of Yongchang were stacked layer by layer, and the continuous calculations made Yongchang's face show a little fatigue. But his eyes became brighter and brighter. The original doubts and haze were slowly disappearing bit by bit. At the same time, Zero's detection of the microcosm was gradually coming to an end. The simple model of the small universe was gradually improved and projected into the holographic projection. This is a standard spherical space. The diameter is about 1 light year. Not big. It is even smaller than the solar system, with the Oort cloud as the boundary of the solar system. Its radius is about 1 light year, but even so, this small universe still made the faces of the academicians present show joy and excitement. The biggest difficulty in the cross-galactic expedition is actually the problem of material reserves. Antimatter fuel is nothing. The biggest part is actually the maintenance materials and starship replacement parts. After a long journey of 5,000 years, various parts in the starship will inevitably be damaged. Although the engineering ship can carry out comprehensive repairs on the damaged starship in real time, it requires resources. After all, in the galaxy, these resources are not a big deal. For a level 6 civilization, it can obtain the required materials by going to the nearest star system with the curvature engine. But if it is between galaxies, this is completely different. That is an area with extremely sparse matter, that is a vacuum close to the extreme. And the density of matter is even measured by the number of atoms in a unit space. Even the so-called galaxy bridge is just a small road with a relatively higher density of matter, which is not comparable to the density of matter in the Milky Way. For the 7th level civilization that has mastered the technology of mutual conversion of matter and energy, the neutral hydrogen bridge is a perfect route. They can directly spend a considerable amount of time collecting these hydrogen atoms and convert them into pure energy, and then convert the energy into the required matter. But for human civilization, which is still at the 6th level, the neutral hydrogen bridge is just a fuel replenishment area that adds icing on the cake. It can't provide any matter other than hydrogen. Therefore, the biggest problem facing human civilization has emerged. In addition to fuel, the fleet also needs to carry enough various supplies, but the more supplies it carries, the more fuel it consumes. And the larger the fleet it needs, the larger the fleet, the more spare supplies and parts it needs to carry, and the fuel consumption forward cycle belongs to it. Relying on the huge computing power of Zero, the Academy of Sciences once conducted a comprehensive simulation of the entire route and found a relatively suitable navigation plan. According to that plan, when the human fleet leaves the Milky Way, it will be a huge fleet with more than 20,000 starships, and when it arrives at the Andromeda Galaxy, the fleet size will drop sharply to more than 3,000 ships. This is a terrifying drop. What? Where did all those starships go? After the supplies inside are consumed, these starships themselves will be dismantled and used. They have never disappeared, but just changed the way they accompany human civilization. That's why, when they learned about the diameter of this small universe, all the academicians had an idea in their minds. How much supplies can be loaded in a small universe with a diameter of 1 light year? If you can take this small universe with you on an expedition, does human civilization still need to worry about insufficient supplies during the expedition? What? Insufficient fuel? Just learn from the mother star fortress left by the 10th Empire and put 2 stars in it. Insufficient supplies. We already have stars, so it is normal to put a few more planets in it, right? As for the fleet, just park the fleet in the small universe and release it when we reach the destination. Zero loss in the true sense. In other words, since we already have stars and planets, it is normal for me to build some more starship factories, right? Since we already have factories, it is reasonable to build a few more research institutes, right? During the long journey of the Milky Way, Humans can even develop quietly in the small universe for 5,000 years, start with a small universe, survive until the 9th level civilization, and then come out again. Of course, the above are all imagined pictures in the minds of academicians. Ideals are beautiful, but reality is cruel. Today's human civilization currently has almost zero knowledge of this small universe. The reason for its appearance, whether it is stable, how to move, it can be said that we know nothing about it. Not to mention taking the small universe on an expedition, we don't even have the ability to move stars into the small universe. Of course, the cruel reality did not hit these academicians. On the contrary, when they learned about the size of the microcosm, their enthusiasm for scientific research instantly soared. Let me ask, who can resist the temptation of carrying a microcosm with them and developing science and technology? Chapter 837, The Escaped Microcosm. After the initial sigh, the academicians put their energy into data analysis and sorting. As usual, Pointling was responsible for the initial screening and processing, and the academicians were responsible for the secondary processing. As for Yongchang, he verified the microcosm model he had just established, based on the space-time theory step by step, based on these processed data. After an unknown period of time, Yongchang quietly stopped writing in the holographic projection. He breathed a long sigh of relief. Although it was just a small action, it attracted the attention and eyes of almost all the academicians. A strong sense of fatigue came from all parts of the body. But the brain was extremely excited and even had the urge to continue to study and perfect the new theory in front of him. This strong sense of separation made Yongchang's turning around seem a little unnatural. Unfortunately, the transformation of the body by the technology tree system was still not in place. Yongchang shook his head with some regret and leaned his overworked body on the experimental table beside him. Everyone, a large amount of detection data has shown that this is a spherical closed space with a diameter of 1 light year. Yongchang's voice was not loud, but the academicians present stopped their work and looked at Yongchang and the holographic projections behind him that were filled with formulas referring to a technology mentioned by 10. Let's call this spherical closed space a microcosm. No one should have any objection to this, right? Yongchang glanced at the crowd and saw that no one had any objections. He raised his hand and made a gesture, projecting the content of the holographic projection behind him onto the huge holographic projection in front of the institute. I tried to explain this microcosm with the existing space-time theory. Unfortunately, it failed, considering that the microcosm technology is the technology of the 7th level civilization. I tried to interpret it with the imperfect 4-dimensional space-time theory. Yongchang took a deep breath. His eyes flashed, and his voice became louder. This time, I succeeded. Since the 4-dimensional space-time theory is not perfect, I can't explain why it appears here, but I can explain some of its abnormal phenomena. Under the astonished eyes of the academicians, he began to explain his findings in detail. With the advancement of cognition, he found that the Randall-Sundrum model was not accurate. Originally, in human cognition, space-time included 1-dimensional time and 4-dimensional space. But it seems that another dimension of space is needed. That is, 5-dimensional space and 1-dimensional time. As for humans, they live on the surface of the 1 plus 3-dimensional hyperspace membrane of the 5-dimensional space. To be more precise, the so-called universe is just a small bubble on this hyperspace membrane, and humans are insignificant creatures living in this bubble. This bubble is not stable, and new tiny bubbles can appear on its surface. These tiny bubbles are the so-called microcosms. Under normal circumstances, the newly born microcosm bubbles exist attached to the macrocosm bubbles. In other words, there is actually a certain overlap between the two. This overlapping area is the naturally formed clean bottle structure, which is also the entrance to the microcosm. Under the influence of external forces, the large and small universes began to gradually separate. After breaking away from the traction of the macrocosm, if there is no external force to guide, the bubbles representing the microcosms will inevitably gradually drift away and get lost in the huge 5-dimensional space. Perhaps one day, they can successfully land on this hyperspace membrane, or Perhaps one day, they can merge with other small bubbles to form a larger universe, or perhaps life will appear in this later formed universe. These are not within the scope of Liu Yongchang's consideration point. All he needs to pay attention to is this miniature microcosm in front of him. The war between the sweepers and the pastoral school gave birth to this microcosm bubble, and the aftermath of the space-time turmoil caused by the war caused it to break away from the constraints of the macrocosm point. At this moment, this small universe has completely broken away from the constraints of the big universe and is ready to float to the vast 5-dimensional space point. Because of this, human civilization did not discover this small universe structure at first. Even if the space-time sea surface bulges, it is just the so-called clean bottle structure point. This is actually very easy to understand. For example, there is a small bubble floating on the water surface. Suddenly, the bubble breaks away from the water surface and drifts into the sky. At this time, how can the creatures living on the water surface enter this bubble? It's very simple. Just raise the water surface. Or in other words, raise enough waves so high that the water surface touches the bubble again, so high that the two overlap again. A large number of formulas and models hit the slightly fragile nerves of a group of academicians. Although LV Yongchang has slowed down his explanation as much as possible, the level I academicians present are still confused. Only a few top academicians barely keep up with LV Yongchang's thinking. This is also normal. It is difficult for creatures living in 1+3-dimensional space-time to break the shackles of thinking and imagine the phenomena occurring in the vast 1+4-dimensional space-time. Fortunately, these academicians are the top existences in human civilization. At the same time, they have been immersed in the research of space-time theory and high-dimensional space-time theory for a long time, and they have already had some superficial understanding of high-dimensional space-time. Although they still have a lot of confusion about the new theory proposed by LV Yongchang, it does not affect their understanding of one problem. That is the specific situation of this small universe at this moment. Yongchang, do you mean that this small universe has completely broken away from the constraints of the big universe? Fang Zhu couldn't sit still. He stood up from the chair suddenly. Is there any way to pull it back to the big universe? A small universe with a diameter of 1 light year, if it can be used, will be of great help to our next expedition plan. LV Yongchang nodded calmly and added, not only that, in theory, this naturally formed clean bottle structure will also disappear completely in the near future. Fang Zhu looked at LV Yongchang in a daze. Seeing the indifferent smile on LV Yongchang's face, Fang Zhu's eyes turned red. At this time, you can still laugh. Small universe. This is a small universe. What if it really runs away? Seeing Fang Zhu's expression getting more and more anxious, LV Yongchang, who had been holding his appetite, waved his hand happily. Calm down, calm down. The clean bottle structure of the small universe is still relatively intact, which means it should have just left the big universe not long ago. Imagine that under the influence of the aftermath of the war between the sweepers and the pastoral faction, it took nearly 2000 years for it to completely break away from the big universe. Although the escape velocity of the small universe will gradually increase, but theoretically, we still have at least 500 years to study the corresponding countermeasures. Chapter 838 Kuafu. In addition, the smile on LV Yongchang's face became brighter and brighter. The microcosm is completely free from the constraints of the macrocosm, which is actually a good thing for human civilization. Why do you say that? Lin Yangnian frowned. He couldn't understand the logic. The microcosm and the macrocosm are close to each other. Isn't it easier for us to enter it? LV Yongchang shrugged and asked Lin Yangnian a question directly. What about the enemy? Lin Yangnian's face was choked. The microcosm and the macrocosm are close to each other, and the clean bottle structure is spontaneously formed. Admittedly, this is conducive to the entry of human civilization. But correspondingly, the enemy can also easily enter the microcosm through these natural clean bottle structures. This is obviously not the safe zone that human civilization wants for humans alone. On the contrary, it may even be a cage built by humans themselves. Only by pushing the small universe away from the big universe and letting it float in the big universe can it be a sufficiently safe area without Knowing the four-dimensional coordinates of the small universe, it is difficult for the enemy to launch an attack on it. I have reason to suspect that the real small universe manufacturing technology not only needs to create a small bubble on the hyperspace membrane, but also needs to completely push the bubble away from this hyperspace membrane. Then, use some unknown method to pull the bubble floating outside the hyperspace membrane. LV. Yongchang's eyes flashed, and he said, "So, our current priority is to find a way to pull the small universe." While performing the detection mission, the probe ship accidentally picked up a wild small universe with a diameter of 1 light year. This news is in. While detonating the entire Human Union Academy of Sciences, it also greatly changed the expedition plan originally formulated by the Academy of Sciences. The material collection work that was more than half completed was urgently stopped. The reason, naturally found a better option. Earth calendar year 4405. After 3 years of research, under the leadership of LV Yongchang, the Space-Time Research Center took the lead in proposing a small universe traction plan. As the only force that can transcend the hyperspace membrane, gravity is naturally the best solution for traction of small universes. When the plan was first proposed, it was questioned a lot. After all, the traction object is a universe. Although this universe is very small, with a diameter of only 1 light year, this still cannot change the fact that it is a universe. From common sense, its mass is extremely large, and the gravitational strength required to traction it is, I'm afraid, it's also a terrifying number. But subsequent research found that the real situation is very different from imagination. There is also gravity between the macrocosm and the microcosm. However, driven by the aftermath of the war, there was a brief imbalance between the two. In this case, human civilization actually only needs to provide a small guiding force to restore the balance between the macrocosm and the microcosm. That is to stop its escape behavior. Then, this gravity will pull the microcosm to sail outside the macrocosm like pulling the string of a kite. It sounds easy, but in fact, this small gravitational strength is still twice the strongest gravitational source that humans can currently create. In order to create this kite line of sufficient strength, scientists the Academy spent a full 10 years. It was not until the 4415th year of the Earth calendar that the Academy of Sciences successfully solved this problem. Through the study of natural clean bottles in the microcosm itself, the theory of high-dimensional space-time has been greatly improved. At this moment, human civilization has also stepped half a foot into the field of level 7 civilization. At this time, it is no longer appropriate to describe humans as level 6 civilization. A more accurate term should be quasi-level 7 civilization. The paths of scientific research are mostly interlinked. A breakthrough in a theory often leads to the progress of other theories under the guidance of the theory of high-dimensional space-time. All aspects of human civilization have made great progress. In particular, the breakthrough of the Grand Unified Field Generation device has made the manufacture of gravitational kite line from theory to reality. Earth calendar 4418. In the Death Star region 1800 light years away from the Kepler 452 star system. The engineering ship and a large number of robots are completing the construction of the last module under the control of Zero. A little further away, other TOT material storage ships loaded with materials. In order to save time, the manufacturing work of the traction device was directly placed in this dead star area. This is a brand new megastructure project, the Microcosm Traction Platform, Kuafu. The device is a ring structure, like an enlarged version of a ring scientific research project. As a megastructure project, Kuafu is naturally not small. The outer diameter is 15,000 kilometers and the inner diameter is 10,000 kilometers. To some extent, its structure and size are a bit like a star-ring structure tailored for a planetary fortress inside Kuafu. In addition to the latest model of planetary curvature engine and antimatter reactor, there is only a super large-scale Grand Unified Field Generation device. According to the calculations of the Academy of Sciences, these Grand Unified Field Generation devices can generate a sufficiently strong directional gravitational field. This powerful gravitational force will turn into a kite line across dimensions, firmly binding the escaping microcosm to the side of the macrocosm. At the same time, the movement of Kuafu, can also drive the movement of the microcosm. Science Academy, Central Research Institute. As always, LV Yongchang still stood in front of the console, looking up at the various complicated data in the holographic projection. The microcosm traction platform, Kuafu, is about to usher in the first trial run experiment, the microcosm capture experiment. I hope this is also the last trial run experiment. LV Yongchang thought silently in his heart. Once the experiment is successful, Kuafu will not shut down easily. He needs to continue to operate to maintain the existence of this gravitational kite line that captures the microcosm, so as to prevent this hard-won microcosm from escaping again. Energy reserve, normal status, grand, unified field generation device, normal status, self-test, completed. Kuafu is on standby. Electronic synthesized sound came from the speaker. LV Yongchang's eyes were stern, and he retracted his somewhat messy thoughts and gave orders without hesitation. Kuafu, full power start. The first microcosm capture experiment starts now. Chapter 839 Successful Capture. The large-scale antimatter reactor began to operate under LV Yongchang's command. The vast energy flowed along the energy path towards the grand unified field generation device arranged in a certain order. A silent vibration came from the hull of Kuafu and eventually transmitted to the surrounding space and time. In the area directly above Kuafu, the most powerful artificial gravity source in the history of human civilization is gradually emerging. Gravity penetrated the 1 plus 3-dimensional hyperspace membrane and quickly extended outside the membrane 1 plus 4-dimensional space and time. It was a bizarre world. A huge hyperspace membrane extended infinitely in the vast space and time. The camera gradually zoomed in. On one side of this hyperspace membrane, there were large or small cavitation structures attached. No, not just on the hyperspace membrane. Even outside the membrane, there were a large number of small cavitation structures floating around. The camera continued to zoom in and positioned on a large cavitation structure on the hyperspace membrane. This is a super large cavitation bubble, which is much larger than the surrounding cavitation bubbles. There are a large number of free small cavitation bubbles around this super large cavitation bubble. Among them, there is a thread constructed by gravity between some of the free small cavitation bubble structures and the large cavitation bubble structure. This gravitational thread is the only link that maintains the two large and small cavitation bubble structures. The distance between the threads is close and far, and the scale of the small cavitation bubbles is also large and small. The camera continues to zoom in. In an inconspicuous corner of this super large cavitation bubble or thread formed by gravity is spreading rapidly at the speed of light. In the bottom area of the super large cavitation bubble, that is, inside the hyperspace membrane, an unknown existence slowly opened its eyes. He noticed this newly appeared kite line. His eyes looked in the direction of the kite line. What a small kite. He subconsciously sighed in his heart. At the same time, he also noticed a problem. This miniature kite was slowly escaping. At the current escape speed, it would probably not take long for this miniature kite to completely disappear from his sight. He did not care about this. He had seen this scene many times. Once upon a time, he had seen hundreds of millions of kites of different sizes scrambling to escape the large cavitation structure. He yawned and continued to cast his gaze on the slowly extending gravitational thread. Under his gaze, the thread accurately locked onto the miniature kite. Success. Good technique. He praised it casually without any emotion. The miniature kite sank slightly and stopped escaping. Looking at the scene in front of him, he could not help but sigh in his heart. It's so small and so close. This is the smallest kite he has ever seen, and it is also the kite closest to the large cavitation bubble he has seen. It's normal. The longer the kite line, the larger the scale of the kite. This is the most basic rule. He turned his sight and looked at the infinite distance. Over there, there were countless cavitation structures of different sizes compared with those cavitations. The cavitation he was in was not actually that big. A trace of longing flashed in his eyes. How envious. But envy was useless like those small cavitations. He also depended on this big cavitation for existence. Although he lived inside the hyperspace membrane, he could not break free from the shackles of the big cavitation. In other words, He could not leave this area point. He slowly closed his eyes and listened quietly to the various chaotic sounds coming from the big cavitation. Death Star region point. A looming spherical structure appeared right above Khufu. The spherical structure was very small, only 100 kilometers. It was the entrance to the small universe that had not yet completely disappeared, and it was also a trace that the small universe and the big universe were once closely connected. 1800 light years away. Point in the Central Research Institute of the Human Union Academy of Sciences, or thunderous applause broke out. Captured successfully. LV Yongchang exhaled a breath of turbid air, and his tense body relaxed a little. Point with a faint smile in his eyes, he stared at the data in the holographic projection that gradually stabilized. Point today, human civilization finally has a small world of its own. Point the applause gradually stopped. Point LV Yongchang issued the second order in a slightly brisk voice. The small universe dragging experiment starts now. The small universe dragging experiment. Point as the name suggests, it is to use the movement of Khufu to drag the small universe that is free outside the large universe to move. Point this is a necessary technology for carrying the small universe for interstellar voyages with the support of high-dimensional space-time theory. The difficulty of this technology is not too high. Point the small universe dragging experiment officially began. Khufu maintained the original gravitational field strength and started the specially modified curvature engine at the same time. Point in order to prevent the influence of space-time fluctuations on the small universe, the curvature bubble wrapped the looming clean bottle entrance and Khufu together. Then, driven by the curvature engine, Khufu began to move forward slowly. 0.01 c, 0.1 c, 0.5 c. Khufu's speed continued to increase, and the atmosphere in the research center also changed from cheerful to solemn. All the academicians were concentrating on the fluctuating data in front of them, fearing that something unexpected would happen. 1 c, 1.01 c. At the moment when it exceeded the speed of light, the huge Khufu disappeared in the visible universe. Seeing that the data of the small universe was still stable, LV Yongchang put down his heart a little and issued an order to continue accelerating. The breakthrough of basic theory allowed the curvature speed to break through the limit of the 6th level civilization. Theoretically, the maximum flight speed of a starship can be close to 2000 c. Khufu is limited by its own size and mass, and its maximum cruising speed is 800 c. This is also the final test target of this experiment. A small universe with 2 slower speed is actually not of much help to the expedition plan of human civilization. In the holographic projection, the speed of Khufu is constantly increasing. 100 c, 500 c, 800 c. The data is still stable. The kite line cast by gravity has withstood the test. Looking at the still stable, looming sphere wrapped in the curvature bubble, Lu Yongchang relaxed and sat back in the chair behind him. The success rate of the expedition plan has been greatly improved. Chapter 840 Star Capture Plan. Earth calendar year 4460. The territory of the Pan-Human Federation is 29.7 light years away from the Kepler 452 star system. It is a single star system, and the main star is a small red dwarf star, although it is called a star system. In fact, there is no planet in the entire star system except for some small celestial bodies such as asteroids. It can be called a lonely family. There are actually many such star systems in the universe. Under normal circumstances, these star systems will not be visited by civilizations just like it, although it is located near the Kepler 452 star system and is also the capital area of the Pan-Human Federation. For thousands of years, no warship has ever entered its stellar wind range. In fact, due to its small size, the Human Federation Megastructure Engineering Department skipped it when laying the Dyson Sphere. But on this day, the arrival of a fleet broke the original tranquility of this star system. It was a huge fleet composed entirely of megastructures, more than 500 star pickers, and 1 Khufu Human Federation Academy of Sciences, Central Research Institute. Academicians were looking at the picture in the holographic projection with excitement and trepidation. In the picture, It was a red dwarf surrounded by hundreds of giant structures. This was the first star capture experiment of the Human Union Point. Previously, the Academy of Sciences had put more than 100 planets of different sizes into the small universe through the cooperation of Starpicker and Kuafu. The entrance of the clean bottle does not look big, only more than 100 kilometers, but that is the projection of the 4-dimensional structure in 3-dimensional space. After all, the hugeness of its real structure cannot be observed by the naked eye. According to the calculations of the Academy of Sciences, let alone planets, even stars can be easily swallowed up. Normally, the star selected for the precious seat in the small universe should at least be a G-type yellow dwarf. A small star like a red dwarf is not in the eyes of the Academy of Sciences, but this is the first time to conduct a star capture experiment. To be safe, the Academy of Sciences specially selected a smallest red dwarf. Of course, after the capture is successful, it will be thrown back to its original position. There is no way the space in the small universe is too tight. According to the plan of the Academy of Sciences, at least 5 medium-sized stars with a mass greater than or equal to that of the sun need to be stuffed into the small universe. In other words, in an area with a radius of 1 light year, a total of 5 medium-sized stars and more than 100 planets of varying sizes need to be stuffed. This material density is so great that even the central area of the Milky Way has to call it Big Brother. Can you imagine a stable 5-star system? Can you imagine dozens of planets running in the same orbit? Yes, in the crazy plan proposed by the Academy of Sciences, these more than 100 celestial bodies will form a stable 5-star system under human intervention, and at the same time, the more than 100 planets will also orbit these stars steadily. The proposer of the plan, undoubtedly, it was Academician Yevgeny. This is reasonable, isn't it? In the holographic picture, a huge giant structure, Starpicker, flew towards a selected red dwarf star. This is the latest technology of the Academy of Sciences through the mutual cooperation of Starpickers. It is enough to transport most small and medium-sized stars. The request of 10 to transport stars was finally realized by human civilization. More than 500 Starpickers unfolded their structures under the control of 0 and connected to each other through the grand unified field. The power of Starpickers gradually increased. The red dwarf with a reddish-brown surface gradually began to shake. At the same time, Kuafu also began to operate at full power. After the reinforcement and transformation of the Academy of Sciences, the clean bottle structure gradually became clear. Gradually, it became a standard sphere with a little light on the surface. That was the light produced by various large-scale artificial facilities in the microcosm. Under the precise control of 0, Kuafu and Starpickers walk towards each other. When the spherical structure symbolizing the entrance of the clean bottle came into contact with the red dwarf, a magical phenomenon appeared. The red dwarf, which was a standard sphere, was severely distorted at this moment. As the two continued to approach, the size of the red dwarf began to shrink at a speed visible to the naked eye. More than 10 minutes later, the red dwarf star completely disappeared in the vast universe. And the spherical structure, which was originally mostly black, was now emitting a faint reddish-brown light. That was the light of the red dwarf star from the microcosm. Successfully captured the target star. A calm electronic synthesized voice sounded. Release. Experiment in progress. After the voice fell, Kuafu changed the direction of navigation and slowly retreated. Not only Kuafu, but also the Starpickers in the microcosm also dragged the star in the opposite direction. Another extremely distorted picture. A reddish-brown planet changed from small to large, from distorted to normal, and finally reappeared in the macrocosm. Successfully released the target star. Kuafu is in normal condition. Star Pickers is in normal condition. The target star is in normal condition. The experiment was successful. Looking at the red dwarf star in the holographic projection that was still slowly releasing light and heat, LV Yongchang stood up from his chair while clapping. Start the star capture plan immediately. That's right. As if he had thought of something, he turned his head and said, send this batch of Starpickers to the Imperial Fortress first. Find a star from its nearby area and take it there. It's time to put an end to the deal we promised. Got it? The moment the electronic synthesized sound rang out, more than 500 star pickers left the vicinity of the red dwarf star one after another, forming a neat queue and heading for deep space. PS. Thanks to Hayao Ayusudan for his great certification. Thanks to Doshi Ideo for his great care. Today is another 5 chapters, dear readers. Move your fingers and click to generate electricity with love. Chapter 841. Right square bracket. 20 years later, Earth calendar year 4480. Following a wave of space-time fluctuations, a starship appeared in the sparse nebula material. In the center of the nebula is a small, bright white star. With a faint light. That's a neutron star. It rotates at an astonishing speed and accurately emits electromagnetic pulses at the same time intervals to the surroundings. These electromagnetic pulses are like a broom, sweeping rapidly through this purple-red nebula. The medium-sized starship, which was not that big, quickly determined its target, a giant planet covered by thick armor deep in the purple-red nebula. The giant planet silently moves in a regular circle around the neutron star. Powerful electromagnetic pulses sweep intermittently on its extremely smooth surface, like a breeze blowing over the hills, without causing any substantial impact on it. The 10th Empire, the mother star fortress under Zero's remote control. The starship slowly approached the planet fortress. When the starship successfully entered the synchronous orbit of the planet fortress, an electromagnetic wave message with a frequency of 1420 MHz was transmitted from inside the fortress at the same time, not far from the starship. The huge crack across the surface of the fortress also emitted some faint orange light. The detection equipment then detected a strong unified field. The electromagnetic wave information from inside the fortress was quickly translated into human words by Zero and presented on a huge holographic projection at the Central Research Institute of the People's Academy of Sciences, more than 1,000 light years away. Enraged civilization, the Empire's home star fortress welcomes you. Looking at the clear white text in the blue holographic projection, Yongchang couldn't help but fall into silence. Hundreds of years have passed, and this incident has almost been forgotten. Human civilization has even opened a vest account at the 10th Empire fortress. He pondered for a moment and entered a line of information in response to 10. I have the highest respect for you. The enraged civilization came to fulfill the contract of the year. The 1420 MHz electromagnetic wave carried the compiled information and transmitted it to the Imperial Fortress ahead. At the same time, the medium-sized starship slowly sailed towards the straight and neat big gap, which was the giant port entering the Imperial Fortress. After the starship was detected, the orange light in the fortress port became brighter and brighter as the traction gradually increased. Zero also released control of the starship. Greeted by the orange light, the starship quickly fell into this huge planetary fortress like a sesame seed. It didn't take long for the starship to pass through the thick protective layer and enter the outer area of the planetary fortress. There is no difference from 700 years ago. It was still the thick fog, and it was still the huge empty cabin that looked like it had been ransacked by robbers. The side hatch of the starship opened, and a scientific research robot slowly walked out of it. At the same time, a clear projection appeared in the thick orange-yellow fog. It is a complex structure constructed of countless materialized light paths. Perhaps is a courtesy from the 10th Empire, or perhaps to show respect for the enraged civilization. 10th projected its image in front of the scientific research robot. The scientific research robot slowly raised its head and looked up at the flickering optical brain structure. An electromagnetic wave communication came. Have you completed the collection and transportation of gas giant planets? In such a short period of time, the task of collecting and transporting 1,000 gas giant planets was completed. Article 17 of the Empire Supreme Act and Article 3 of the Silicon Alliance's Supreme Act. Those who engage in fraud and breach of contract will face extremely severe punishments. Along with this information came 2 complete documents. Needless to say, the content of the document is naturally the so-called Empire Supreme Act and the Silicon Alliance Supreme Act. Obviously, 10 did not believe that the enraged civilization could complete this arduous task in such a short period of time. Yongchang, who was in the Kepler 452 star System looked at the contents of the two bills and had some enlightenment in his heart. Most of the contents of the highest act of the empire are related to this civilization. The highest bill of the Silicon Alliance mainly targets other civilizations from these two bills. We can see what kind of changes the 10th Empire has experienced, from fighting alone at the beginning to finally establishing the Silicon Alliance and becoming a powerful force. Under Liu Yongchang's order, the scientific research robot responded to 10's words. No, we have not completed the collection and transportation of 1000 gas giant planets. The orange light inside the fortress became a bit dimmer visibly to the naked eye. Coupled with the thick and constantly rolling fog, it created an inexplicable sense of oppression. After a brief silence, 10 quickly questioned and gave a suggestion. Then how are you going to fulfill the contract back then? The energy reserves of the Imperial Fortress can still last for a long time, and you can pay them back slowly. After a few seconds, the scientific research robot of human civilization sent a new message. We transported a G-type yellow dwarf star. This should also comply with the original contract requirements, right? The dim lights inside the fortress suddenly lit up and then returned to normal. The orange-yellow mist continued to roll, and the Imperial Fortress fell into an inexplicable silence. The light brain in the projection flickered, and the flashing frequency of each materialized light path was much higher than before. Obviously, 10 was doing his best to analyze the meaning behind the words of enraged civilization. After a long silence, it sent a short message. Kepler 452 star system, in the Central Research Institute. Looking at the big question mark in the holographic projection, the atmosphere of the institute also became weird. Visible to the naked eye, all the researchers had a faint smile on their faces. Ahem. LV. Yongchang coughed twice to suppress the occasional chuckles in the research institute. Normal situation. Don't forget, human civilization at that time was only a level 5 civilization. It's normal for it to have such doubts, although he said so. LV Yongchang couldn't help but raise the corners of his mouth. Do you already have the technology to move stars? 10 raised doubts again. Also, the G-type yellow dwarf you mentioned, where is it now? According to my preliminary detection, there are no yellow dwarfs moving towards the fortress within 1000 light years, nor are there any gas giants moving towards the fortress. Obviously, 10 did not believe the words of the enraged civilization. Faced with such doubts, LV Yongchang just glanced at the holographic projection on the side and confirmed the specific coordinates of Kuafu. Then, the coordinates were sent to the Fortress Master 10. Chapter 842 Gravitational Shield. Inside the Imperial Fortress, the flashing frequency of the optical brain increased again. 800 C. According to my investigation, the flying object should be a large-scale starship, not the G-type yellow dwarf star you mentioned. Enraged civilization, I hope you can explain this. The orange-yellow light dimmed again. To this, LV Yongchang's response was simple. Please wait patiently for a while. A week later, the small universe traction platform, Kuafu, successfully arrived at the Imperial Fortress area. The outer diameter of Kuafu is 15,000 kilometers. In front of the huge Imperial Fortress, it is as small as a large bracelet. When Kuafu appeared, the orange-yellow light inside the Imperial Fortress dimmed again. Obviously, Kuafu, which has not yet opened the entrance to the small universe, was regarded as an ordinary starship by 10. 0. Opened the entrance to the small universe before 10 asked again. LV Yongchang gave the order directly. Bus, the tremendous energy of the antimatter reactor poured into the grand unified field generator frantically. The output power of Kuafu was soaring at an alarming rate. At the same time, a spherical structure flashing with patchy light slowly emerged just above Kuafu. A sudden change occurred. Inside the Imperial Fortress, the original orange-yellow light instantly turned pale white. At the same time, the brightness of the light also increased several times and flickered at a strange frequency. Warning. Unknown clean bottle structure discovered. Preliminary judgment as the entrance to an unknown microcosm. Suspected to be an unknown 7th level civilization creation. Too close, the defense system is being activated. Dense electromagnetic waves echoed inside the fortress. For the individuals of the 10th Empire who use electromagnetic waves as a means of communication, this is actually similar to the alarm information issued by Zero. Looking at the alarms that flashed across the screen in front of him, Yongchang was startled, especially when he saw the smooth surface of the fort slowly crack and reveal an absurdly large artillery turret. He suddenly felt his scalp tingling. Damn. This is a big deal. He hurriedly asked Kuafu to send identification information to the Imperial Fortress and stated his identity, a small universe traction platform under Enraged civilization. After the identification information was sent, the pale white light flashing inside the fortress paused visibly and then quickly switched to the original warm orange yellow light. At this moment, the optical brain in the projection was flashing at a frequency that humans had never seen before. Yongchang frowned slightly, looking at the picture in the holographic projection, and an idea came to his mind. This fortress main brain shouldn't crash. 1 minute, 2 minutes. Finally, the frequency of the flashing light of the fortress main brain began to slow down gradually, and 10 also sent out electromagnetic wave information again. Enraged civilization, have you mastered the small universe technology? Luck, just luck, not worth mentioning. Yongchang responded like this. 10.6. After a brief silence, 10 chose to skip this topic. Updating civilization information. Level 7 silicon-based civilization. Enraged civilization. Development potential cannot be evaluated. Civilization history. This civilization passed the assessment 700 years ago and applied to join the Silicon-based alliance. Please approve it as soon as possible. Wide area touch ion broadcasting is starting. The information has been encrypted and the wide area touch ion broadcasting has been successfully started. Estimated broadcast frequency 1 billion times. Broadcasting begins. Looking at the information that flashed across the screen again, Yongchang was stunned. He took a deep breath, suddenly widened his eyes, and couldn't say a word with his slightly opened mouth. 6. It's not a big problem. What enraged civilization did has nothing to do with me humans. Yongchang could only comfort himself in his heart. Sure enough, when going out, vests and trumpets are indispensable. At this moment, he deeply realized this truth. After completing the wide area touch ion broadcast, 10 seemed to be fine and sent the corresponding docking program to the enraged civilization. To put it simply, due to the lack of some functions of the Imperial Fortress and the inability to move the microcosm, human civilization needs to release the G-type yellow dwarf in the designated area. Then, 10 will open the microcosm of the 10th Empire and swallow the G-type yellow dwarf into the microcosm. Practice makes perfect. For today's human civilization, operating Kuafu to release and swallow stars has become a simple operation. Zero's control ability makes the cooperation between Kuafu and star pickers extremely coordinated. It only took more than 10 minutes and a little warm light from the G-type yellow dwarf appeared in the originally dim starfield. This light continued to increase and slowly expanded into a huge fireball. The fireball burned fiercely in the dim universe, showing the energy in its body to the surroundings. This should have been a common occurrence. But Yongchang stood up from his chair with a surprised look on his face. What's going on? Not only Yongchang, but everyone in the research center cried out in shock. No gravity. The moment this yellow dwarf appeared in the universe, the originally powerful gravity disappeared instantly like a flame that was extinguished. It quietly hovered near the Imperial Fortress. The closest distance between the two celestial bodies is even less than 10 million kilometers, but there was no disturbance between the two. Such a magical phenomenon immediately caused a sound of gasping in the research institute. In order to maintain the character of enraged civilization, Yongchang did not ask 10, but made simple speculations based on various observation data. Gravitational shielding. Yongchang murmured in a low voice. An abnormal space-time structure appeared near the star, which shielded the gravity of this star. He quickly thought of the application site of this technology, the small universe. If the gravitational effect between stars is not considered, the materials contained in the small universe will increase exponentially. Various high-precision detectors on Kuafu, and Starpica began to operate at full power under Zero's control. They are doing their best to record all the abnormal phenomena in this space-time point. Human civilization does not have too much observation time. A few seconds later, a spherical structure with light spots flashing on the surface slowly emerged, swallowing the yellow dwarf easily and quickly. Compared with the small universe picked up by human civilization, the entrance to the small universe opened by the Imperial Fortress is obviously several times larger, even if it is projected in three-dimensional space. The entrance size of this small universe exceeds 100 million kilometers, not to mention its real size in four-dimensional space. It is hard to imagine how huge this small universe is. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 843, Surprising Action. The yellow dwarf star with warm light slowly appeared in this universe, and then disappeared in this universe at a very fast speed. The rapid appearance and disappearance of such a huge monster did not cause any impact on this space. Not to mention the nearby starships and imperial fortresses. Even the interstellar dust still remained in their original positions without any change. Such a magical scene made the Human Union Central Research Institute, more than 1,000 light years away, fall into a dead silence. LV Yongchang swallowed his saliva, his Adam's apple moved up and down slightly, and he sighed with difficulty. Is this the strength of a level 7 civilization? The answer is yes. Even though human civilization already has some technology that exceeds level 6 civilization, it is still shocked by the technology that the Imperial Fortress casually displayed. Although they are both small universe technologies, the gap between the two is so large that it is somewhat difficult for people to accept. The contract has been completed. Enraged civilization, thank you for your help to the Empire. The message sent by 10 interrupted LV Yongchang's thoughts. He looked at the universe that had returned to peace in the holographic projection and the inner space of the fortress that was glowing with orange-yellow light, and remembered his other purpose. LV Yongchang moved his fingers slightly, controlling the scientific research robot to send a complex message to 10. The message contained part of the expedition plan of human civilization and marked the specific time when the expedition would begin. 70 years later, that is, in the year 4550 of the Earth calendar, the human fleet will officially set out from the Kepler 452 star system and launch an expedition to the distant Andromeda galaxy. There are two main reasons for telling 10 about this plan. The first and most important reason. LV Yongchang hopes to take this opportunity to conduct some equal transactions with 10. Again, the development of 10 clan and the normal operation of the Imperial Fortress all require a large amount of materials. Human civilization is about to leave the Milky Way, but the Imperial Fortress can only stay in this remote place and has no ability to act externally. As for waiting for the next predestined civilization, the nature of the next civilization that discovers the Imperial Fortress is a complete unknown. Mr. Mastermind of the Fortress, I believe you don't want to see 10 descendants fall into a life and death crisis one day in the future, right? The second, naturally, it is to build relationships as much as possible and rely on the big ship of 10th Empire and Silicon Alliance. It doesn't matter whether the other party agrees or not. The main point is to pull the tiger skin and pull the flag. This is also the reason why Liu Yongchang didn't take action against the Imperial Fortress. Having a possible 8th level civilization as a backer will only be 100 benefits and no harm for the current human civilization. This idea became stronger after 10 issued the so-called wide area Tachan broadcast. If human civilization really encounters 10th Empire and Silicon Alliance in the future, it will be easier to talk with 10 descendants because of the relationship between 10 descendants and the Imperial Mother Planet Fortress. What possible opponents of 10th Empire and Silicon Alliance? That was something done by the enraged civilization. What does it have to do with my human civilization? I have to say that he knows how to distance himself from it, as expected. After the scientific research robot sent this message, 10 fell silent. Obviously, this message from human civilization far exceeded 10's expectations. This can be seen from the flickering frequency of the optical brain projection inside the fortress after a long time. An electromagnetic wave communication was transmitted from inside the fortress. Expedition? Andromeda Galaxy? Have you completed the material reserve work? The history of the Empire shows that a large amount of preparation work is required for a galaxy-level expedition, including but not limited to energy, survival resources for individual civilizations, weapons, and ammunition. Enraged civilization, please carefully consider this decision. It is not a good thing for the development of civilization to rashly carry out a galaxy-level expedition. Seeing the white text appear on the holographic projection, Yongchang suddenly showed a faint smile on his face. It is obvious that 10 does not want human civilization to leave the Milky Way. From the perspective of the Imperial Fortress and 10 descendants, this is an unquestionable choice. Yongchang responded quickly. Material storage has been completed. The internal vote of the civilization has determined the expedition plan. As an ally, we are here to say goodbye to you. During the conversation, Yongchang had unconsciously put himself in the position of an ally of the Empire. Another long silence. Yongchang did not care about the increasingly long waiting time, or rather, this was a foreseeable situation. Compared with the first level civilization, the computing power of human civilization has increased countless times, but 1's permission is still the same as before, and it can only be responsible for the most basic calculations and auxiliary work. This is the biggest reason it is difficult for level I artificial intelligence to handle such emergencies. According to Yongchang's experience, level I artificial intelligence, which only thinks rigidly according to procedures, often comes to a conclusion that is far from common sense at this time point, but this conclusion is consistent with all basic settings. For example, in order to prevent human civilization from being exterminated by alien civilization, artificial intelligence chooses to prioritize the extermination of human civilization. Of course, this is just an example. Under normal circumstances, such outrageous operations will not occur under the restrictions of the underlying protocol. But this is exactly what Yongchang wants. 10. The logical errors he made have nothing to do with human civilization. Time passes minute by minute. Finally, a new electromagnetic wave message came from inside the Imperial Fortress. The information content is not complex. To put it simply, 10 came to an incredible conclusion after comprehensively considering the security of the Empire's home star fortress, the future development of the 10 descendants, civilization, and the comprehensive performance of the enraged civilization. It hopes that the enraged civilization will take the Empire's home star fortress to the Andromeda Galaxy. Let's not talk about what other academicians think. At least when Yongchang saw this message, he just felt trembled and couldn't help but sigh in his heart. 6. I just want to get as much benefit as possible. Who knew you directly sold me your entire fortune? But look back and think about it. 10. This decision indeed complies with all the tasks assigned to it by the Empire. Yongchang looked at the white text and the holographic projection and didn't know what to say for a moment. At this moment, there was only one thought in his mind. After solving this matter, he must lower 1's permission to another level. Chapter 844 set sail. There is no doubt. The proposal proposed by 10 caused a shock to the Central Research Institute. For the decision made by this level I artificial intelligence, the academicians expressed shock and had only one unified attitude: accept, must accept. After all, what can be more like pulling out a level 7 peak civilization mother star fortress as a banner? What's more, this banner also has a variety of high-end and advanced technologies. Apart from other things, the gravity shielding technology and the perfect microcosm technology alone are enough to stir the heartstrings of the academician. So, after deliberately waiting for a while, Yongchang sent a response message to 10. As an ally of the 10th Empire, the Sarge's escort mission is the responsibility of the enraged civilization. In the case of one willing to fight, and the other willing to be beaten. 10. And the enraged civilization quickly signed a new agreement. The agreement stipulates that the enraged civilization needs to take the Empire's mother star fortress to find the traces of the 10th Empire. During this period, the enraged civilization needs to provide various necessary resources for the Imperial fortress as for the Imperial fortress, it must provide necessary assistance to the enraged civilization during the expedition. At first glance, human civilization seems to be at a disadvantage in this agreement. But it is not the case. The so-called necessary assistance is a very broad requirement. For example, the issue of the license to use the Empire's microcosm. In order to ensure the success rate of the expedition, the microcosm left by the 10th Empire must be open to human civilization, right, in the Central Research Institute. With this idea in mind, LV Yongchang and a group of academicians signed the name of enraged civilization on the agreement. Then, at the moment the agreement came into effect, LV Yongchang made this request to 10 without any concealment. Under the expectant eyes of a group of academicians, 10 gave a chilling answer. The Imperial fortress cannot leave the current orbit while retaining the microcosm. Considering that the other party is also a level 7 civilization, 10 also gave a very detailed explanation. Slightly different from the previous explanation of 10. There are two main reasons why the Empire Mother Star Fortress cannot be moved. On the one hand, there is a problem with the curvature engine, which LV Yongchang has known for a long time. The other reason is far beyond LV Yongchang's expectations. The fortress's microcosm traction device has a huge fault. Now, it can only ensure the basic balance between the microcosm and the macrocosm. In the simplest terms, today's Empire Mother Star Fortress is like a child pulling a super large kite. The lift of the kite is too great, and it restrains the person flying the kite. Unless the kite line is cut. Otherwise, even if the curvature engine is repaired, the Empire Mother Star Fortress cannot escape from the existing orbit. In other words, if you want to take away the Empire Mother Star Fortress, it will inevitably lead to the loss of the microcosm. Of course, considering the level of the enraged civilization, 10 also proposed a corresponding solution. It is a relatively complete set of repair methods, among which the size and strength of various key components are indicated. But the only thing that is not specified is the manufacturing method. The problem is here. Humanity has not yet become a true level 7 civilization. The small universe we have now is still picked up from scraps, building the core device parts needed for a level 7 peak civilization without drawings and manufacturing methods. Even LV Yongchang could only smile bitterly. 1 month later, the scientific research robots and engineering ships that came from the original path installed the curvature engine of human civilization on the Empire's Mother Star Fortress. Due to its huge size and mass, its maximum cruising speed can only reach 100 c. But it still has basic mobility. Under the control of 10. The power of the small universe traction device that has been running inside the fortress for more than 200,000 years gradually weakened. The kite line that spanned dimensions and was made by gravity also broke completely at this moment. On the boundless hyperspace membrane in the 5-dimensional space, a small bubble was like a kite with a broken line, slowly leaving the edge area of the large bubble and floating towards the boundless and bizarre 5-dimensional space. The civilization microcosm of the 10th Empire completely broke away from the constraints of the big universe at this moment. If nothing unexpected happens, it will be lost forever in the vast 5-dimensional space. One day, it may fall back on the hyperspace membrane again and merge with other bubbles to form a new universe. At that time, the life in that universe may find the traces left by the 10th Empire. After completing the microcosm cutting work, 10 somewhat unfamiliarly controlled the low-end engine from human civilization and entered the microcosm of human civilization. 70 years later, in the 4550th year of the Earth calendar outside the Kepler 452 star system, a small fleet of 500 starships lined up in an EAT formation. The periphery of the fleet is mainly composed of star-class frigates, Zuanwu, and star-class battleships, Jinwu. In the center of the fleet is a star-class Qiao planetary fortress different from ordinary Qiao planetary fortresses. This Xiao is much smaller in size, and at the same time, there is an unremarkable artificial planetary ring structure in its equatorial region. This is the value of this fleet. Protecting this planetary ring structure is the highest priority task of this fleet. And this planetary ring is the small universe traction platform, Kuafu. Almost all the materials and starships of human civilization exist in this small universe. In the starfield just above Kuafu. Disguised as a planetary ring, there is a time-space distortion structure that seems to exist and not exist. That is the entrance to the small universe. Under normal circumstances, the small universe will not be closed, but a half-hidden small door is always open. Tachyon communication is also transmitted from this small door. There is no way. Before mastering the cross-universe communication technology, human civilization can only use such a stupid method to control the fleet outside the small universe. Inside the small universe. 5G type yellow dwarfs and more than 100 planets are stably running in their respective orbits with the assistance of the Grand Unified Field Device. The Dyson sphere tightly envelops these 5G type yellow dwarfs. They constantly convert the energy emitted by these stars into antimatter for storage. There are holes and gaps on the surface of these Dyson spheres that contain certain rules. The light and heat generated by the stars can accurately pass through these holes and shine on more than 100 planets around them. Various starships and automated space factories, under Zero's control, orbit the planets in an orderly manner. Among them, an extremely large starship quietly docked near a Ju-type yellow dwarf. Flagship Earth. A Tachyon message was sent from it, through the looming entrance to the small universe, to the fleet, revealed to the outside world. Human civilization, set sail. Chapter 845. Inside the Human Union microcosm. Home Fortress Number 2, the central square of the capital city. There were crowds of people. This central square, which was designed to accommodate a maximum of 1 million people, was now crowded with at least 10 million people. A large number of security robots maintained order on the scene. The well-hidden gaps on the ground were emitting a hint of cool air. Even though this square gathered more than 10 million people, it did not feel stuffy at all. Qi Mengshu arrived at this central square 2 days in advance, and only then did she occupy a good viewing area in the central area of the square. Blue sky, white clouds and warm sunshine. She could even feel the warm feeling of the sun shining on her body. The senses always deceive the brain. She looked up and looked at the scene in front of her, and a faint trance arose in her heart. It seemed that she was still living on the original habitable planet. The real situation was not like the information conveyed by her eyes. As a technical backbone of the largest holographic film and television production company in the Human Union, she knew the principles behind these warm scenes very well. The artificial shell that envelops the entire home fortress has the function of a virtual sky. Blue sky, white clouds, these are just illusions created by high-power holographic projection. As for the warm and gentle sunshine, that is the light produced by large-scale stellar spectrum lamps. Just as she was daydreaming, the crowded crowd around her let out a low cry of surprise. Qi Mengshu subconsciously raised her head and looked up into the sky. In the virtual sky, a huge clock projection appeared at some point in the projection. The 30-minute countdown was slowly passing by. Looking at the jumping numbers, Qi Mengshu's eyes revealed a hint of excitement and expectation. The clock projection did not always hang in the center of the virtual sky. It quickly shrank to the corner of the virtual sky, freeing up a large area of projection area. The virtual sky slowly darkened. The original blue sky, white clouds and sunshine disappeared quickly in just 1 minute. Instead, there was a beautiful night sky with stars. A huge holographic projection slowly unfolded, and a figure in formal clothes gradually became clear. Qi Mengshu's eyes moved slightly as she looked at the sky. Lin Shuguang, the current chairman of the People's Federation. A picture buried deep in her memory inexplicably emerged in her mind as the first generation of new humans born in the public care system. After leaving the social care center, they looked for jobs together on the Dawn Star in the holographic projection. Lin Shuguang had already started his final mobilization speech. Qi Mengshu, immersed in his memories, smiled faintly. The awkward Lin Shuguang who had just walked out of the social care center slowly overlapped with the passionate Lin Shuguang who was giving a mobilization speech. There were excited shouts around him. The shouts gradually became uniform, and it was a simple vocabulary: expedition, Expedition on. The inconspicuous clock projection on the side of the virtual sky. The countdown quietly came to the last 5 minutes. Home Fortress number 4. The virtual sky slowly darkened, and at the moment of nightfall, the huge projection slowly unfolded, and Lin Shuguang's figure also appeared in the sky of Home Fortress number 4. Unlike the previous 3 home fortresses, the surface of Home Fortress number 4 is covered with lush forests. In these forests, there are buildings that are cleverly integrated with the forests at this moment. Black and white balls poked their heads out of these buildings and looked up at the holographic projection in the sky together. After thousands of years of learning and adaptation, the current Taladan civilization has completely mastered the language system of human civilization, while retaining its own language system and culture. At the same time, thousands of years of hard work have also allowed the Taladan civilization to accumulate sufficient contribution points and credit points. They have also successfully become a 4th level civilization and mastered the preliminary application of antimatter and gravitons, but driven by nature, they still like to live on the surface of planets with lush vegetation. Lin Shuguang's speech gradually reached its climax. These black and white Taladans also excitedly raised their short and round forelimbs and shouted in the language of the civilization. Their expectations for the expedition mainly come from the generous contribution points and credit point rewards. The grand unification theory of level 5 civilization has been keeping these Taladans on their toes in the synchronous orbit of the number 4 home fortress and the nearby space. There are small and tough warships parked. Holographic projections are also presented in the space inside these warships, but it is different from the lively atmosphere of the home fortress. The atmosphere inside these warships is full of iron and blood and seriousness. One by one, Eugene Lizardman looked at the holographic projection in front of him with respect, and his slender vertical pupils were filled with a little bloodthirstiness and deep respect in his bones. This is the effect of thought stamp. As Lin Shuguang's speech gradually came to an end, these lizardmen opened their mouths full of sharp teeth and made low calls in hoarse and unpleasant voices. Long live the Emperor. Expedition farther away. There is a miniature version of the home fortress. Its size is far smaller than other home fortresses, and its diameter is only 1,000 kilometers. Inside this home fortress is a complete primeval forest composed of towering trees. The stellar spectrum lights are extremely bright. The gamma ray tides drawn from the antimatter reactor surged inside the home fortress like a wave. The holographic projection was presented in the air. The lost giant insects did not understand these images. They were busy with their own lives. Reproduction is a major event for the race. Nus gently shook his roots exposed above the ground, as if celebrating something. The startled lost giant insects hurriedly put down their unfinished race events and fled in a hurry. Time passed bit by bit. The countdown also came to the last few seconds. There was silence all around. There was no sound in the central square, and everyone subconsciously held their breath. Under the influence of the tense atmosphere around her, Qi Mengshu only felt her heart beating violently. With tears of excitement in her eyes, she stared at the small fleet of 500 starships in the huge holographic projection. The moment LV Yongchang's voice sounded, deafening cheers suddenly rang out in the home fortress. The Tachian information successfully passed through the microcosm entrance structure. The output power of the antimatter reactor began to increase steadily, and at the same time, stable curvature bubbles appeared around each starship. The next moment, a bizarre picture appeared in the holographic projection. The fleet entered the superluminal curvature state. The cheers around became louder and louder, and Qi Mengshu only felt that inspiration burst out in her mind. The new holographic image promotional video has been conceived. As for the name, she took a deep breath, raised her hand to wipe the tears from the corners of her eyes due to excitement, and then wrote a few words on her personal terminal. The Expedition of the Empire. Chapter 846. Retracing the escape star path. After entering the superluminal curvature state, the human fleet did not head directly towards the Milky Way and Andromeda Galaxy Bridge. Instead, it turned slightly and rushed towards the direction of the dead star region. Retracing the escape star ode of the year. This was a proposal put forward by LV Yongchang and passed by the Academy of Sciences and the Parliament. The first stop of the fleet was the black hole of a relatively small scale. It was not only the place where human civilization was promoted to level 5 civilization, but also the hometown of the NUS civilization point. Of course, according to the navigation plan, the fleet would not stop their point. The next stop was the Gliese 555 and Ross 154 star systems, which had long been reduced to ashes in the war between the sweepers and the Pastoral faction. Finally, the fleet will stop for a while near Proxima Centauri and head to the birthplace of human civilization, the solar system. After the fleet set off, the hustle and bustle in the small universe slowly disappeared. In order to save supplies, the humans on the home fortress went into hibernation. They will wake up one day in the future and watch this documentary promotional video about the escape star road. As the producer of this film, Ki Mengshu did not hibernate. She followed the fleet and passed through the star systems that were in ruins or even completely disappeared in the universe. At a high speed of 800 c, the thousands of years of human escape from the star system seemed particularly short, but no one could deny the heavy history contained in this short star road. Ki Mengshu recorded it like this. 3 years later, in the year 4453 of the Earth calendar, a dilapidated star system quietly ran in a corner of the Milky Way. Sparse stellar matter was dispersed in the star system, forming a beautiful planetary nebula. Inside the nebula, except for a giant reddish-brown star that had expanded several times in volume, there were only a few relatively large planets accompanied by strong space-time fluctuations. A fleet of large warships appeared outside this dilapidated star system. The solar system has arrived. In the Earth, LV Yongchang sat in his seat, looking at the holographic projection of the dying solar system, his face full of emotion. Not only him, all the older generation of scientific researchers from the Earth era and the Earth stared at this fading galaxy for a long time. The Tachyon signal was sent. The fleet started the curvature engine again and entered the solar system at a speed of 0.5 c. Kip about Pluto. The dwarf planet kicked out of the 8 planets, as the outermost planet in the solar system was not affected too much. It still runs smoothly in its orbit and sends the first greetings to human civilization after more than 2000 years. The fleet slowly passed near Pluto and continued to drive into the inner solar system. In the picture sent back by the high-definition camera, a silver-white object suddenly flashed. What is it? LV Yongchang quickly stood up from his seat and issued an order to 0-0. Capture it. A small detector was released and quickly approached the object, reflecting the silver white light. When its true appearance appeared in the holographic projection, LV Yongchang's face suddenly became serious. Not only LV Yongchang, but also the most senior academicians subconsciously stood up from their chairs and stared at the technological creation in the holographic projection. This attitude made the atmosphere in the Earth, which was not very light, even heavier. It was a technological creation with a dilapidated surface and full of traces of time. The original circuit board was exposed in space, covered with a thick layer of interstellar dust. No signal came from any form. There is no doubt that it has been damaged. What is this? Ki Mengshu, who was allowed to enter the command center of the Earth because of shooting a documentary promotional video, lowered his voice and asked the young researcher beside him carefully. The researcher shook his head in confusion. Obviously, he, who was born in the Kepler era, did not recognize this antique. This is a probe. Just when Ki Mengshu and most of the researchers were confused, a gentle voice came from the front. LV Chief Lu. Ki Mengshu looked at the figure in front of him with some surprise and exclaimed in a low voice. LV Yongchang nodded to Ki Mengshu and continued to explain. According to the number above, it should be a probe made in 2035. At that time, humans were in the Martian era. The purpose of this probe should be to explore the mineral resources in the asteroid belt. I didn't expect it to be preserved until now. Ki Mengshu stared at the primitive creation in the holographic projection with shock on his face. This is the history of human civilization, Chief Lu. It should be preserved in the Museum of Human Civilization. LV Yongchang nodded gently. Of course. In the holographic projection, the small probe had carefully put the dilapidated probe into the cabin. The fleet continued to move forward. Neptune, Uranus. When the fleet came near Saturn, the debris of various technological creations increased several times in an instant. Titan, Outpost plan, LV. Yongchang moved his lips slightly and uttered a plan that caused a lot of shock more than 2000 years ago. I remember, it seems that a special life form was discovered on Titan at that time. Zaoziji sighed not far away. It's been so long, I don't know if they still exist. When it comes to the past of the Earth era, only the voices of some old guys are left in the command center. They should be gone. The elderly Ko Lianke responded with some sadness. Under the helium flash, how could these lives that have not evolved to higher intelligence survive? What's more, we carried out extinction style fishing before leaving. That's not necessarily true. This time, it was Gao Yang's voice. I remember that Professor Lu asked Ling to do the simplest deduction at that time. Titan seems to be able to rely on Saturn as a barrier to avoid the helium flash. As for fishing, Gao Yang looked at Ko Lianke unwillingly. Maybe there are still some survivors. Don't forget the war between the sweepers and the pastoral faction. Fang Zhu poured a basin of cold water. Although the solar system is far away from the battlefield, the power of the gamma ray burst. What if Saturn, the natural barrier, works again? Gao Yang continued to refute. Fang Zhu was stunned for a moment and said with a gloomy look, or maybe the command center fell into silence again. There is no doubt that at this moment, no one wants the jellyfish living in the methane ocean to die. 0. Find the location of Titan, LV. Yongchang's voice rang out. Chapter 847. Re-entering Titan. With the observation technology of human civilization today, finding a satellite of a planet is really an extremely easy thing. At the moment, when LV Yongchang finished speaking, a conspicuous yellow logo appeared in the giant holographic projection in front of him. In the yellow logo, there is a small dim dot that is difficult to detect with the naked eye. That is Titan. Next to the huge Saturn, Titan is as inconspicuous as a grain of sand. Under the gaze of a group of academicians, the picture in the holographic projection quickly enlarged. After more than 2000 years, the true face of Titan appeared in front of LV Yongchang again. Looking at the orange planet that appeared in the same memory due to a small amount of fallen material, everyone subconsciously breathed a sigh of relief. The appearance has not changed much. This at least proves that there was no problem with the original deduction. This lucky planet successfully avoided the attack of the solar helium flash. Maybe. Lu Yongchang suddenly recalled Gao Yang's words, and a hint of expectation flashed in his eyes. Are there really surviving jellyfish on Titan? From the Earth era to the present, he has seen all kinds of life and witnessed the belief of these lives struggling to survive in various harsh environments. Therefore, he has always believed in the miracle of life. When he thought that there might still be a fellow countryman in the solar system after more than 2000 years, Lu Yongchang couldn't sit still. He stood up from his seat and gave orders in a hurried and expectant tone. 0. Send a small exploration ship. No, send 3 small exploration ships to land on Titan for a comprehensive search. According to common sense. For the exploration of small satellites such as Titan, a spherical probe is more than enough. But in order to complete the exploration work as soon as possible and to avoid detection blind spots, Lu Yongchang still increased the exploration intensity several times after the order was issued. LV Yongchang sighed deeply and once again focused all his attention on the planet that glowed light orange under the light of the red giant star. At this moment, he suddenly understood the significance of the civilization of Shi 2, 10th Empire. It is not an exaggeration to say that they are descendants. When the civilization looks beyond the Milky Way, let alone the civilization and life born on the same planet. Even the life born in the same star system, in LV Yongchang's view, has an inexplicable sense of intimacy. A side port of the Jinwu battleship located on the periphery of the fleet quietly opened. At the same time, 3 small exploration ships with a size of less than 100 meters slowly flew out of the huge port gate and drove the curvature engine to fly quickly towards Titan and the distance. In the command center, as the producer of the recording and promotional video, Qi Mengshu looked at the holographic projection in front of him nervously. In the picture, the small orange planet is getting closer and closer. Qi Mengshu's heart beat faster, although she had never seen the so-called Titan jellyfish with her own eyes, and she didn't know what happened at that time. In the history of the human union for more than 2000 years, what happened on Titan was actually described in only a few lines of text in the history books for the general public. The Titan Outpost project discovered unknown life forms living in the methane ocean, and in order to obtain lubricants with excellent performance, the human union carried out extinction-style fishing for this nascent civilization. At the request of Yongchang. This is a history that every citizen of the human union who has received compulsory education must know. But the time span of more than 2000 years is still too long, so this painful history is difficult to resonate with. The new generation, including Yongchang. The orange planet has occupied the entire holographic projection. The 3 exploration ships have successfully entered the synchronous orbit of Titan. Looking at the dilapidated technological creations on the synchronous orbit, a heavy historical atmosphere rushed towards Yongchang. Her heart was beating violently. She subconsciously held her breath and pressed the record button on her personal terminal. The probe did not stay in Titan's synchronous orbit for too long. After a brief glance, they plunged into the thick atmosphere. The orange atmosphere diffused around the probe, blocking the view of the high-definition camera. The atmosphere in the command center became more and more solemn. Even Yongchang changed his previous calmness and pursed his lips tightly, staring at the holographic projection interface. The probe using the curvature engine descended very quickly. Because the space itself was moving, the friction between the atmosphere and the probe was close to 0. At first it was narrow, but it was passable. After walking a few dozen steps, it suddenly became clear. After a short wait, the probe broke through the high-level atmosphere filled with fallen matter, and the picture in the holographic projection became clear instantly. A large flat land and a medium-sized, sparkling ocean. Add to that the faint orange atmosphere and the orange-red sun. At just one glance, Yongchang was deeply attracted by this fantastic scene. But unlike Yongchang, the moment the clear picture appeared, a rather uncoordinated voice sounded in the command center. Yongchang heard it clearly. It was a sigh full of helplessness. The surface temperature has risen a bit. Yongchang shook his head with disappointment, turned to explain to Yongchang, the original huge methane ocean evaporated a lot. Even with Saturn as a barrier, the solar helium flash still had a significant impact on it. He glanced at the statistics on the side. This should be the original Kraken Sea, and its area has shrunk by nearly 50%. Now, it can only be called Kraken Lake, not to mention the original lakes and small oceans. They are almost gone. This is an extremely huge blow to those jellyfish. At present, Yongchang sighed deeply. There is little hope, Professor. Have you forgotten that there is an inland sea? Gao Yang's voice sounded again. There is an inland sea under the Kraken Sea. If those jellyfish hid in the inland sea, Yongchang was slightly stunned, and the dusty memories in his mind emerged. It seems. Is this the case? He turned his head to look at Gao Yang. Looking at Gao Yang's unwilling expression, Yongchang could only smile bitterly. He raised his hand and tapped the operation interface beside him a few times. The 3 exploration ships dropped rapidly and rushed straight to Kraken Lake. Chapter 848 Signs of Life Discovered. The probe ship did not get too close to Lake Kraken. The reason is simple. Although this is the smallest probe ship in the Human Alliance fleet, its 100-meter long ship body is destined to be unsuitable for entering this small lake. Moreover, the heat emitted by the probe ship without special treatment is simply a nightmare for this methane ocean. When the probe ship was 1,000 meters away from the lake, the belly hatch of the probe ship quietly opened. Dozens of spherical probes with a diameter of less than 1 meter popped out of the hatch and fell into Lake Kraken. Looking at the waves splashing on the lake, the command center fell silent again. The perspective was switched to the spherical probes. These probes are carrying out the search mission at a very fast speed. There is no sign of any large biological activity in the surface ocean, that is, Lake Kraken. Under Zero's control, the spherical probe quickly dived deep. According to the map in the database, they found several ice volcanoes connecting the inland sea and the open sea. Through these ice volcanoes that constantly spewed nutrients, The spherical probe entered the inland sea under the Krakenmare Lake point. The evaporation of the outer sea did not affect the inland sea point as the probe continued to go deeper. The signs of life gradually became stronger. Basically they were single-celled organisms of various shapes. This also gave the people in the command center some hope. It seems the seeds of life have not been completely cut off. But as time went on, this hope gradually dissipated. The probe searched every corner of the inland sea and still found no trace of the jellyfish. Maybe. Zaoziji pursed his lips and said with a somewhat ugly face, the extinction style fishing at the time completely fished out this population. Yongchang did not speak. But a rare trace of regret appeared on his face. Of course, regret is regret. If he really had to face the original situation again, he would still issue a fishing order without hesitation. When human civilization faces a life and death crisis, all saintly behaviors are irresponsible to the entire civilization. What a pity, he whispered. Zero, let the probe ship come back. Wait a little longer. LV. Yongchang looked at the speaker helplessly. Gao Yang, I know what you are thinking, but, Professor, let the probe ship search the land again. Gao Yang put his hands together and made a request to LV Yongchang. We haven't conducted a comprehensive exploration of the land yet. LV. Yongchang looked at Gao Yang's prayer with a little firmness and smiled bitterly again. Okay, I'll do as you say. Zero. Conduct a comprehensive search of the land area of Titan. Release artificial heat sources and try to lure jellyfish to appear. After speaking, LV Yongchang sighed softly and turned around and sat back in his chair. There are no jellyfish in the inland sea, so how could there be any on land? Qi Mengshu silently felt the atmosphere in the command center and looked up again at the rapidly changing pictures in the holographic projection. The probe floated silently in the low altitude area of Titan. Every detail of the surface was clearly presented to everyone. Gravel covered the flat land. Suddenly, an object that didn't fit in caught everyone's eyes. Before LV Yongchang called for a stop, the probe automatically stopped flying and aimed the high-definition camera at the object. It was a starship. A starship with a strong human civilization manufacturing style. It was the Luan bird, abandoned on Titan. Perhaps because Titan did not suffer a direct helium flash from the sun. Coupled with the unique methane atmosphere inside Titan, the Luan bird was relatively well preserved. Even LV Yongchang could see various clear lines and marks on the surface of the Luan bird starship. But the Luan bird did not attract the attention of the residents. Everyone's eyes were on the thing next to the Luan bird. After seeing the true face of those things, LV Yongchang stood up with excitement. Not only LV Yongchang, everyone in the command center stood up. All stand up, one after another. Exclamations rang out in the command center at the same time. Zero's reminder also reached everyone's ears. Warning. Signs of life found. Signal. Level. Strong. Scale. Statistics completed. Number of individuals. 1,032,467. It was a group of pale yellow jelly-like round creatures in the picture. These round creatures are arranged in a huge circular array around the Luan bird. The pale orange atmosphere, the orange-red giant sun. Their elastic pale yellow bodies are shaking back and forth in a unique posture, like a kind of Gao Yang stared at the huge holographic projection in front of him, muttering in a low voice, sacrificial ceremony. Qi Mengshu, who was standing aside, stared at the scene in front of him in a trance and added. Lu Yongchang muttered to himself in disbelief. This group of jellyfish not only survived, but even evolved consciousness. How the hell did they do this? It's only been 2000 years. Even LV Yongchang couldn't help but swear. Compared with human evolution, the evolution speed of this group of jellyfish is as fast as riding a rocket. Not bad. Although the appearance has changed and the individual size has become much smaller, LV Yongchang can still see that these pale yellow round creatures are jellyfish from more than 2000 years ago. Suddenly. They stopped their movements and raised their heads to the sky one after another. Discovered. LV Yongchang's heart skipped a beat. For the slow intelligence civilization, witnessing the creation of a higher civilization is likely to cause widespread panic and riots within its civilization. For a low-level civilization, this is a devastating blow. But the next moment, an unexpected scene appeared. Not only did this group of jellyfish not show the panic in LV Yongchang's heart, they even swung their elastic bodies with a larger amplitude. What's going on, LV? Yongchang asked Fang Zhu beside him with a confused look on his face. I don't know, faced with LV Yongchang's question. Fang Zhu also showed the same confusion. Then, what should we do now? LV Yongchang continued to ask. I really don't know. In the command center, the academicians stared at each other with wide eyes. Finally, LV Yongchang's somewhat rigid thinking turned a corner with difficulty. Lin Zile, where is Lin Zile? Immediately. Ask academician Lin Zile to come to the command center. Tell him to bring some academicians who understand theology and religious studies. P.S. Thanks to Ling, who is my treasure for the Great God certification. Thank you for your support. Chapter 849. Punishment of World Destruction. The orange-red sun hangs in a corner of the sky. A new standard day has arrived. The light and heat pass through the thick atmosphere and sprinkle on the sparkling methane sea. The surrounding temperature begins to rise slowly, and a little fog gradually rises on the sea surface. A creature with a pale yellow body and a shape similar to the umbrella of a jellyfish slowly emerges from the sea. After briefly looking up at the huge fireball that spreads light and heat around, it turns its attention to the giant hanging on the horizon, occupying half of the sky. Since the birth of their civilization, this giant has always occupied a corner of the sky. It is a huge orange sphere. There is a huge ring around the sphere. Looking closely, there are circles of striped color bands of different colors on this huge sphere. It floats on the sea, staring at this giant, and slowly swings its elastic body following the surrounding waves. This is a dance to pay respect to the gods and to pray. In their culture, this giant that has been hanging high in the corner of the sky is the temple where the gods live. The dance lasted for a long time. When the whole dance ended, it hurriedly dived into the sea. Although there was no danger to its life, the temperature on the sea surface still made it feel a little uncomfortable with its body swelling. Feeling the cool sea water around it, and the gradually disappearing swelling feeling, it couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. The routine prayer ceremony on every standard day and standard night is the time when accidents are most likely to occur, especially the prayer ceremony on the standard day. Once the best time to float up is missed, there may be a risk of life. It once saw a fellow tribesman whose body continued to swell until it exploded during the prayer process. The pale yellow body fluid and body debris evenly covered the sea surface. What a horrible scene it was. Because of this, every time it was its turn to perform the routine prayer ceremony, it would float up in advance to avoid accidents. Fortunately, the next prayer ceremony on the standard day will be conducted by a different person. It muttered to itself as it dived deeper into the ocean. Through the not so wide passage, it successfully reached the area where the tribe lived and gathered the Rinland Sea. A slightly larger fellow tribesman slowly floated toward it and asked it. That was the tribe leader. The content of the inquiry was naturally about the details of this prayer ceremony. It vibrated its vocal organs and reported to the tribe leader what it saw and heard during this prayer ceremony. Halfway through the report, it suddenly hesitated. There was a discovery that it didn't know whether it should report. The tribe leader urged it. Helplessly, it could only tell its discovery truthfully. The temperature on the standard day seemed to be a little higher than before. The moment the voice fell, the tribe leader fell into silence. Not only the tribe leader, but also the tribesmen around him fell into silence. After a long time, the tribe leader responded, "Are you sure this is not an illusion?" Just as it was about to continue speaking, the tribesmen on the side all made voices of agreement. "It should be true. I felt something was wrong during the last routine prayer. Now that you mention it, I seem to have a similar feeling, Chief. I suggest cancelling the prayer ceremony on the standard day and only retaining the prayer on the standard night." For a while, the ocean was filled with the gurgling sounds of jellyfish. Every sound would make the chief feel a little worse. "Be quiet." The chief made a sound of stopping him in anger. "It's just a feeling. The prayer ceremony must not be cancelled. Have you forgotten the punishment of extinction from the gods?" The voice fell. The noisy gurgling sounds around stopped abruptly. Each tribe member's body contracted to varying degrees, a symbol of fear and horror. The gods destroyed the world. It was a major event recorded in the history of civilization. In ancient times, the gods were furious because they lacked the necessary respect for them. The gods left the temple, descended into the world they lived in, and launched an annihilation operation that lasted for several standard days and nights. The gods used high temperatures as weapons to kill more than 99% of life, although most of them were individuals with low intelligence that had not yet evolved completely. This still had a great impact on the development of civilization. After the annihilation, almost only jellyfish with higher intelligence remained in the ocean. The population also dropped sharply to 3,000. Since then, the jellyfish began to pray to the gods in an organized manner, asking for forgiveness and protection from the gods. Its true point, since they began the prayer ceremony day after day, the gods living in the temple have never sent down the punishment of annihilation. Just when the jellyfish were immersed in fear and terror, a slightly larger jellyfish slowly swam over from a distance. Chief, in recent times, the prayer ceremony on standard days has caused the deaths of 3 tribesmen. Hearing these words, the patriarch's expression suddenly became ugly. Prayer is dangerous, but 3 tribesmen died in a short period of time, and the mortality rate was obviously higher than the normal level. This is a bad sign. Its body swayed slowly in the cold sea water, and its vocal organs made a low gurgling sound. Let the stargazer come to me. It left an order and swam slowly towards the depths of the ocean. Chief, are you looking for me? A thin jellyfish with some cracks on its body surface swam slowly from a distance, and a unique gurgling sound was heard in the seawater at the same time. Its original body was not like this. Like other jellyfish, it originally had a plump, smooth and elastic body. But praying is a dangerous act. Not to mention stargazing. It had been in danger of exploding several times. Its thin body and cracks were the best proof. It was also because of this that the stargazer's status in the tribe was second only to the chief. The chief twisted his plump body and went to the stargazer at the same time. He vibrated his vocal organs and told the stargazer about the unusual discoveries made by the tribesmen during the prayer process. After speaking, the stargazer fell into silence, and his thin and shriveled body also quietly hovered in the seawater without any movement. Time passed by bit. When the chief was a little impatient, the stargazer finally vibrated his vocal organs again. The gods will once again bring down the punishment of annihilation. Chapter 850. The gods descend. Silence. Along silence. The patriarch stared blankly at the stargazer in front of him and suddenly felt a strong sense of impending death. The smooth skin on the surface of its body shrank sharply, and while its round body shrank, layers of wrinkles also appeared. Why? Since the last punishment of world destruction, we have never stopped praying for countless standard days and nights. Why does the god want to punish the world again? Exclamation mark. Faced with the clan leader's repeated questions, the stargazer remained silent for a while and then began to explain again. I don't know the reason, but 300 standard days ago, the stars changed strangely again. In the night sky, stars began to disappear without warning. At first, only 1 or 2 stars were abnormal, but as time goes by, the stars disappear faster and faster. Today, thousands of stars have disappeared in the night sky. Speaking of this, the stargazer pondered for a while, seeming to be recalling something. In the history of civilization, there have been such visions before. After that, the second punishment of annihilation occurred. The patriarch's body trembled slightly, and he asked the stargazer in a low voice, "You mean the Great Meltdown?" The big meltdown occurred 35,000 standard days ago. When a stargazer was observing the night sky, he suddenly discovered that the number of stars in an area of the sky had suddenly decreased. What followed was an unexplained death within the group. The body of a dead individual will spontaneously dissolve into the seawater. Only those individuals hiding in the deepest part of the inland sea managed to escape. Yes. The stargazer gave a resounding answer. Abnormality in the stars, the gradually shrinking outer sea area, all this indicates that the third punishment of annihilation is coming. The patriarch twisted his body irritably, swimming back and forth in the cold water. Finally, it stopped in front of the stargazer. "Tell me, what should we do?" Facing the clan leader's gaze, the stargazer didn't hesitate at all and gave the answer straightforwardly. Start the big prayer ceremony again to pray for God's forgiveness. After completing the prayer, go to the deepest part of the inland sea and wait patiently for God's response. Big prayer ceremony point very different from the standard day and night prayer ritual point. The routine prayer ceremony requires only one prayer person, while the big prayer ceremony requires the participation of all clan members. Routine prayer rituals can be performed by simply rising to the surface of the sea point, and the big prayer ceremony, you need to go to the ruins of the gods to proceed. The relics of the gods are the relics left by the gods after the first punishment of annihilation point. According to legend, it was the mount left by the gods here to awaken the world point. Originally, the ruins of the gods were on the seaside point. However, as the outer sea area continues to shrink, the distance between the gods' ruins and the ocean gradually increases. To this day, traveling to the ruins of the gods is a difficult challenge in itself for the jellyfish point. Coupled with rising temperatures, it is foreseeable that this big prayer ceremony will lead to the death of a large number of tribesmen. Therefore, the patriarch subconsciously wanted to reject the stargazer's request point, but thinking about the two punishments of annihilation recorded in history, it was still afraid point. In order to minimize the casualties among the tribesmen, the start time of the big prayer ceremony was set at the beginning of the next standard night point. Night falls. All the jellyfish, led by the clan leader and stargazer, left the inland sea and landed on land point. They struggled to twist their limp bodies and move forward slowly on the flat land covered with gravel point. According to plan point, they will arrive at the ruins of the gods in the middle of a standard night point. After completing the great prayer ceremony, they will rush back to the ocean at the beginning of the standard day point. The temperature at this time is not too high, and the tribesmen can still persist point. Time passes bit by bit point. The night is getting deeper and deeper. The temple hanging high in the corner of the sky is very bright, illuminating the surrounding area point. The thick atmosphere and the light from the temple obscured the light of most stars. Therefore, even under normal circumstances, stargazers can only observe a few stars. But now, the patriarch raised his head, looked at the night sky, and sighed deeply point. In the vast night sky, except for the light of the temple, there were almost no stars. All the stars disappeared. This seemed to indicate the severity of the punishment of annihilation that would follow point. It looked sadly at the shadow of the gods' ruins in the distance, with countless distracting thoughts in its heart point. Oh God, what did we do wrong? It asked from the bottom of its heart point. Apparently, no one responded to its question point. Finally point. Thus the expedition briefly came to an end point. Looking at the ruins of the gods before their eyes, the tired jellyfish began a big prayer ceremony under the guidance of their clan leader. They are close together, arranged in concentric circles around the ruins of the gods point. Then they slowly swayed their bodies, and their vocal organs began to vibrate, making a series of low sounds of gurgling, gurgling point. The patriarch prayed devoutly to the ruins of the gods, and begged for forgiveness from the gods. The prayer lasted a long time. If it were changed to human time, it would take a full 20 hours. The prayer was about to end point. The patriarch cast his eyes on the ruins of the gods. He hoped from the bottom of his heart that the gods would respond point, but he was disappointed point. The ruins of the gods did not respond at all. It was like a stone, standing quietly on this flat land point. So the patriarch raised his head again, and cast his eyes on the temple in the sky point. There was still no change point. Just as he was about to turn his sight back, and announce the end of the great prayer ceremony, a vision appeared. At some point, an unknown object was hovering in the sky point. From the patriarch's point of view, behind this unknown flying object was the temple, that released a faint light. God has descended. It agitated its vocal organs, and announced the news to the surroundings with a voice that was so trembling that it could not be more point. Wow. The prayer ceremony that was about to end came to an abrupt end point. One by one, the jellyfish raised their heads and cast their eyes towards the sky point. The unknown flying object was still suspended in the air, as if the gods were silently watching them point. At this moment point, the jellyfish were boiling. After years of prayer, they finally got the response from the gods. While they were looking forward to and excited, they were actually more panicked point. They felt a powerful heat source in the sky, and an inexplicable sense of panic rose up. Pray. Keep praying. The hoarse voice of the stargazer sounded, awakening the group of jellyfish that were stunned in place point. So, they danced their bodies more vigorously, and the prayers were recited louder and louder. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.